is honor some high school students who are very much so dedicated to the idea of Black excellence as high school students, senior students, I believe. One from McBride High School, not too far away from here, and another one from my alma mater, Long Beach Poly High School, all right? So I really appreciate school students taking the efforts of understanding the importance of education, understanding how that is a benefit to us as a community. Malcolm X once said that the future belongs to those who prepare for it today, and education is a passport to the future. So I think these students very much so exemplify that, and I'm so proud and honored to honor some of them. So I'm gonna ask Kiamora Nettles and also Jakaya Brown from Long Beach Poly to come on stage, please. You guys can come this way and walk up this way. These are high school student leaders. They're also the Black Student Union presidents at their current high schools. Wow. We're talking about the idea of incorporating Black student unions within the high schools. So we want to honor you all. Kiki, you can give them this one. Okay. We want to honor you all with a certificate of Black excellence. Let you know that we, the Black Student Union at Long Beach State, appreciate you. We love you, and we really thank you all for joining us at this conference or whatnot. Now, do you guys want to say a few words before? Okay, no problem at all. We can make that happen. This one on.
Hi, I'm Jakaya Brown, and I just wanted to thank you guys, and it's greatly appreciated.
I'd like to thank you as well. My name is Kiamora Nettles. I'm a senior at McBride High School. Going to McBride, it was a predominantly white school. It's new on campus. I believe this is the 5th year there. I've been to McBride for I've been president of McBride for 4 years, and I founded the Black Student Union at McBride. So I would like the Black Student Union legacy to continue at McBride, and just for students to see that it is important and care about being Black and love being Black, and also participate and show a strong desire for being involved in the Black community. So I just want to thank Justin and Cal State Long Beach for this award. I'm just humble, and I'm thankful for the support and everybody here today. Thank you.
Right. We didn't have envelopes, I'm sorry. So I want you both to hold on to this, and you hold on to that. And we thank you and appreciate you, okay? All right. Okay, now we're getting into what you all have been waiting for, the panel discussion on the power of culture. So let's get ready for that. If you all, the BMs, if you can help us move this to the side, because myself and Kiara Metellus, Kiki right here, we're gonna be the co-moderators, and we're gonna be sitting down to the side over here, so that we can make sure that happens. Yeah, that's cool. All right, just give us 1 second.
Please, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, now that we have that transition, I think we're good to go in terms of introducing our panelists. So before we do that, we want to talk about real quick, why this understanding of culture? And honestly, I feel that there's confusion as into what culture is, what role it plays in terms of, let's talk just in terms of Black students' life here on campus. How does culture inform us in our everyday actions or whatnot? Honestly, last night we had a very fun turnout at our talent show. So we had a headliner come and she performed or whatnot. And some of the folks who have been a part of the Black Conscious Conference over the past couple of years, you know, college students, we like to have fun. We like to party, you know, make necessarily the music or sometimes might not necessarily reflect Black consciousness at its best, some of the activities we engage in. But, you know, at the same time, being real, this is something that is reflective of cultural expression in terms of how college students want to engage in within their undergraduate experience. So with that, we felt it was important to kind of talk about this because in addition to that, what I was taught is that culture is connected and it has three primary functions: community, economics, and politics. So a lot of the questions we have framed today are going to be based in that order and centered around that very much subject. So with that, we want to go ahead and introduce some folks. So first we're going to introduce Dr. Andrea Moore. So before you go on, we're going to say a short few words about you, opening the program. So Dr. Andrea Moore is an assistant professor in the Ethnic Studies Department at Sacramento State. She received her BA in sociology and a PhD in cultural studies from the University of California, Davis. Her academic brand focuses on ethnic history and social cultural productions. Her areas of expertise are situated within Pan-African history, cultural studies, sociology, and popular culture. Moore has over 10 years of teaching experience in higher education, working with the Department for Behavioral Social Sciences at SAC and the African American and African Studies Department at the University of UC Davis. So please welcome Dr. Andrea Moore, everyone. You good to go? Okay, cool. Okay. You can do Sister Renee.
Okay. Next, we're going to introduce...
I think it might be sitting down. You good? What happened to Dave? Okay, that works. Oh, sure, it's mine. Okay.
So,
You're on.
okay. Next, we'll be introducing Renee Quarles, who is... So Renee is the owner of Shades of Africa, located in Long Beach, California. Her second location in Corona, California. Shades of Africa is home to over 300 book titles, prints, and limited editions, collectibles, wood carvings from around the world, everywhere Renee has traveled. Shades of Africa is resting and owning its 4-unit commercial building with a natural hair salon, creating 3 new jobs, and the presentation room for all presentation room for all of their events, excuse me. Shades of Africa serves as an open space where we can acknowledge and honor our collective ancestors and ancestral heritage. A place to empower ourselves, inspire creativity and artistic expression. A space to inspire self-awareness, self-responsibility, and self-appreciation. We offer African American books, aromatherapy, black art, body oils and incense, collectibles, custom framing, cheekies, essential oils, holistic products, natural care products, natural hair salons, and more.
Is it repeating itself? Yeah. That's okay. Well, they need to know, so that's all right. Exactly.
Please welcome Renee to the stage.
And next, we're going to introduce Brother Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed is an American film producer, author, and media personality. Nasheed produced the 2011 documentary film Hidden Colors on the history of African and Aboriginal peoples. The film had why y'all put all that in there? The film had a limited theatrical release around the United States before being made available on DVD. Nasheed's follow-up film and DVD, Hidden Colors 2, The Triumph of Melanin, was released in 2012. In 2014, Nasheed released Hidden Colors 3, and Hidden Colors 4 was released in 2016. And he has recently produced a profound and very excellent work and documentary about the history of Haiti, 1804, the hidden history. Please, I'm very honored to announce Brother Tariq Nasheed. Towards me, brother. Okay. And then.
Next.
Okay, you can do Dr. Boyce Watkins. Okay.
So next, I will introduce Dr. Boyce Watkins. Dr. Boyce Watkins was born to a 17-year-old single mother and placed in special education as a child. Dr. Boyce Watkins has risen above the obstacles to become a pioneer of scholarship and advocacy worldwide. In college, he was the Wall Street Journal Outstanding Graduating Senior in Finance with a triple major in finance, economics, and business management. He went on to earn a master's degree in mathematical statistics and a PhD in finance at The Ohio State University. During his year of graduation, Dr. Watkins was the only African American in the world to earn a PhD in finance. As a public intellectual, Dr. Watkins has changed the definition of what it means to be a scholar in America by leveraging cutting-edge technology and his vast network of scholars, celebrities, and activists to share empowering, thought-provoking messages to the masses. Dr. Watkins has made thousands of appearances in national media, including CNN, ABC, MSNBC, and many others. And so with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Boyce Watkins.
All right. Okay, and last but not least, we want to bring on Professor Fumilola Fabamila. Sister Fabamila, Professor Fabamila is a Nigerian-American scholar, activist, playwright, and artist. While her artistry is multifaceted, including spoken word and hip-hop, her current project, entitled The Intersection, is a stage play on the complexities of Black identity, in which she has coined the quote-unquote Black liberation ego. Having recently completed her graduate program at UCLA in Black Studies, Fumilola now serves as a professor of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA. As an original member of the Black Lives Matter movement, she has been organizing with BLM since its inception in 2013. In 2015, Sister Fumilola was honored by the United States Congress and the Black community, clergy, and labor alliance for her commendable activist scholarship, service, and struggle. So with that, and she's often on community channels like this, we want to bring on Professor Fumilola Fabamila. Please give her a round of applause. So, just real quick, we're going to establish a little bit of, I guess, ground rules. And just like a way this panel discussion is going to go. So, we're going to give everybody time to respond to each question. If we're going to give everyone time to respond to each question. Now, we're giving 2 to 3 minutes. If we go past that, we'll put our fist up. And that is how we will signify that it's time for you to kind of wrap it up. Just put our fist up. And, now we were debating on maybe having the crowd do it, but we didn't know because, you know, some people in the crowd might be like, you know, I don't want to hear from that person, so I'm going to just put my fist up right now. So we're not going to do that. It's going to be centered over here, so the only fist in this moment, in this context, that will be recognized is myself and Kiki Metellus. Just by the way, if y'all didn't know, Kiki Metellus is my beautiful girlfriend. So I just wanted to
Yes, claim that, brother, claim that.
Okay. So anyways, we're going to get started on the power of culture. And Black love is a part of Black culture, so.
And also to mention, we will have a screen question and answer.
Yes.
So we'll have volunteers in a few minutes be circulating around the room with baskets and index cards. So if you would like to write down a question, find one of them, and then when we transition into our question and answer period, that's when we'll address those. So.
Okay. So we're actually going to get started with the first question. Just so you all know, we have 3 mics, but I guess something's wrong with your headset. So we'll just be sharing. Dr. Andrea Moore. Okay. Dr. Andrea Moore and Professor Fumilola, just when it comes to us, like maybe sharing the microphone, we can just share it this way. And then Sister Renee, Dr. Boyce and Tariq, you all can share the 2 right here. So if that's fine with you all, let's get started in our first question. I guess I'll answer the first question. So what we wanted to first start off with is the term woke has been popularized in such a way over the past few years, in that it has been referenced in music among students, scholars, and activists such as yourselves. So how would you best define what it means to be woke? has the term lost its authentic value in 2017? And we actually wanted to start with Professor Fabamilo, if possible.
Definitely. How y'all feeling?
All right.
Yes. Come on, Black excellence, Black brilliance in the building. Yeah. Let me answer the question. So, woke. It's anybody who knows anything about my work knows that I've kind of engaged what this phenomenon of woke has become. And the way that I define it in my most recent work is aware, knowledgeable about what's happening in your communities and in the world, with the ability and willingness to assess and critique how social, political, and economic systems of oppression operate at macro and micro levels. So can we agree on that?
Sure.
On a kind of contemporary way in which we're using woke, but we also know that for each of us, we might define woke differently. What it means to be aware and knowledgeable and doing what is best for Black people, if we're talking specifically about Black people, oftentimes means different things to different Black people. But at the end of it, we know in some way, shape, or form, we must function collectively. It becomes very tricky to navigate that, but it's absolutely necessary, I imagine, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to follow up with that?
All right, great question to start with.
Okay.
When I think about this question, the answer that comes to my mind is that consciousness is connected to divinity. And it is an awareness that speaks from your soul. And oftentimes, as academics, we're talking about empirical data, we're looking at numbers, we're looking at qualitative assessments, but really consciousness first begins with you and your own sense of self-awareness that is speaking to you innately. And so we are seeing over time the loss of value in having that connection with self. And this again is a response back to that, this conversation here and everything that we're kind of seeing happening in our current social climate. It is calling you to speak back to what you understand innately.
Okay, so when I think about the term woke, specifically I would say, number one, I can tell you what woke is not to me. I don't think woke is sitting around just complaining about white people all day. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to complain about. Right? In a way, it's kind of like being trapped in a cage, and you're talking about the cage that you're trapped in and who built the cage, and that son of a bitch built this cage and he keeps me in the cage. And at some point, somebody has to say, okay, let's get out this fucking cage. Right? Excuse my French, I'm not gonna cuss anymore, I promise.
It's fine.
Well, I'm usually lying when I say that, but it just came out. But then you get out of the cage and you're becoming woke, right? And you're figuring out what woke means. Well, obviously the next step once you get out of that cage is building a better structure for yourself and also understanding who you are. I think that for many Black folks, because you are raised in an environment where you're like a plant that really doesn't have any roots, based on any authentic roots. You got these artificial roots, these things that make you idolize people like George Washington, who would have killed you and your whole family and then raped your mama at the same time. But those are your fake roots, right? So you got to find your real roots, right? So that's a big part of being woke. Just figure, what does it mean to even be Black? Who am I? And then the last piece I'll throw in there on wokeness is there has to be an economic component to wokeness. Most Black people that I know who are truly enslaved are enslaved because they have a white man paying their bills. And so the reality is that woke and broke don't really go well together, because you can try to stand up to this oppressive system that's holding you back, but what do you look like when you're fighting the power on Sunday, but you got to go to work for that same white supremacist on Monday? It doesn't really work. So that's what I would say woke is, finding yourself and figuring out how you're going to take care of yourself and getting out of that cage. You do pretty much on your way.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey family, how are we all doing today?
Very good.
For me, woke, I've actually can say that Shades of Africa has watched all of us as family. 25 years of being there for you.
I think maybe you can give that mic back.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. Gotta be close on that. Sorry. Hello, family. I'm actually very, very happy to say that Shades of Africa has watched us wake up over the last 25 years. We are waking up. Give yourself a hand. Because when you consider the odds that are always against us, I'm happy and proud to say that we got up and we're moving today, every day. When it comes to being woke, it's not a t-shirt or a mug or a coffee cup or anything like that. Woke is basically what we're doing every day. And right now, what lays heavy on my mind and heart all the time is, I don't want to give a plastic bag away. I don't want to destroy what God gave me. I want to grow a tree. I want to plant something that will feed me, because I'm feeling so vulnerable that the institutions or the powers that be wish to feed me. And that's scaring the heck out of me. So right now it's with the planet, it's economic, it's with what I do with my money. If you have any money, how to plant seed is, staying woke means that you're aware and conscious of everything you do each day. You see, when I have officers for any city that are shooting me in broad daylight, I have to ask where the hell they get that bullet. Was it my quarter to get a tree here? But the truth is, all of us are that way. If we close our eyes and gave homage to our own ancestors and ever consider just for a minute how far back that goes, they too were woke in their system. They've seen it. That's what keeps us awake today. So that's it. I don't want to see the power sign go up.
How y'all doing, family? How y'all doing back there?
Doing good.
All right, let us know who's back there. All right. California, Los Angeles, Long Beach. Yes, Compton. Yes, sir. Now, what the woke means to me, it's all about being exploited. And who's not being exploited? Has anyone here read the autobiography of Iceberg Slim? Who read his book? Anybody? All right, we got some players, some hustlers in the house. Now, for those who haven't read Iceberg Slim's book, Iceberg Slim was a notorious pimp in the 1930s. In the intro of his book, he talks about riding around in a car with his women in the back seat. And his women were giggling, they were laughing. And he said, I love to hear my women giggle because that means they're still asleep. And what that means is that when you're asleep, I can exploit you. And when you're woke, you're aware that you're being exploited, then you're going to do something to stop the exploitation. So that's what wokeness means to me. You're going to stop being exploited, you're going to stop being dominated, and you're going to stop being mistreated by those in the dominant society. So woke is a beautiful thing to me.
It's a great way to start the conversation in terms of how woke, and I think students have some viable information now on how we can incorporate that. Just one quick follow-up question. Would you all agree that there has to be a solidified definition within the Black community and Black culture of what woke is? Does there just have to be one single definition of it, or can it be?
I think that, us being aware is the general consensus. And, with anything in Black culture, we will put different names on the same thing, but we all get it. We all know what it means. When you say woke, it means, okay, you're aware, you're conscious. So that's the general consensus, and I think we got that.
Okay. We move on to the next question.
Thank you for the first question. So going into this next question, touches a little bit, I think, on some of the comments that you have made. It goes into talking about culture and defining culture. So for the question, is there a difference between African and Black culture? If so, why? And how do we collectively move forward in defining culture in its totality within our community?
So we'll have, if we can, Sister Renee, do you want to tackle that one?
Okay, that was on culture.
It was just the one on African and Black culture.
We were doing it the same way, so I was waiting to hear. 1 second. Oh, I know what it is. It's number 2.
Yeah, number 2.
I cannot depend on anyone else to define my culture, be it Pan-Africanism or African here in the Americanism. No matter how I cut it, the only one that will ever define our culture is you and me. And we start that with family. We start that with family whether our parents are with us or not. We are each other's family. And if we just embraced each other for all the differences and the colors and the rhythm that we carry in our presence, we define our own culture. Thank you.
Okay, what was the question again, please?
Yes. So the question is there a difference between African and Black culture? If so, why? And how do we as a collective move forward in defining culture?
Yes, there's definitely a difference between Black American culture and African culture. Our brother, Claude Anderson, he has a book out now talking about Black history, and he looks at it from a socio-political standpoint, and he was saying how it's very important for Black Americans to use the term Black American to describe ourselves, because we have a very unique history. No one in the world has gone through what we have gone through specifically. Very unique struggle, have a very unique sense of victory. No one has done what we've done. Embrace that by calling it what it is, Black American culture, because when we use the term African, we let other people slither through and get things that we should get. There were different cases where there are white people who were born in Africa can come over here, get citizenship, and get scholarship and grants by claiming to be African American. All right? So we have to embrace Black. See, we got this thing where we don't want to be Black. We want to be mixed Puerto Rican, Greek, Cape Verdean. We'll claim everything in the family tree, but when the Black thing come up, everybody want to start acting funny. So we have to embrace Blackness and understand that's part of our culture, and that's who we are.
Anyone wants to say something one more time? Go ahead. Sorry. It's all right. We got time.
Family, I have to say something. I've been introduced to a whole new concept by Brother Tommy of the BSU, I believe. I believe Brother Tommy is of this strong organization here on campus. But the truth is, he introduced to me something that we should all as original. I be the original woman, he be the original man, and no one can take that away from me.
So if we are talking about culture and the difference between African cultures, being many different types of African cultures, and Black American culture, I think that we have to define culture first. What do we mean when we say culture? What is culture composed of? Music and food and dance and language and ways of being and walking through the world. So if we are saying that difference between what is perceived of as continental African culture and Black American culture, we have to make those distinctions. Know that so much of what we would identify as Black American culture is informed by African culture. We see it, and that's why we always, at the end of it, while we acknowledge our differences in our ways of being, we always go back to saying, but we are the same people originally. That serves our greater purpose when we acknowledge our sameness and we acknowledge our differences in a way that can serve us and be beneficial to us in understanding, respecting our differences. Why is this a very kind of passionate topic for me? Because I am what my friends would identify oftentimes as a Nigerian Black American. My family, I'm Nigerian. Okay, so my family, when I talk about Black issues, specifically being a Nigerian woman who was raised in America, I'm talking largely about the issues that are plaguing what we could identify as Black American issues, possibly. So if we're talking about mass incarceration, if we're talking about police brutality, if we're talking about all of these different phenomena, a lot of times we address that as a Black American issue. So what does my family say? Fumi Lola always wants to talk about the Black Americans. She always wants to talk about Black American people as if they are our own people, you know? But I'm like, we are. It would serve us to acknowledge our sameness. And then, what do I hear on the Black American side? You know, the Africans think they better than us. Because y'all come over here, y'all just, so y'all just better? Y'all don't want to be Black Americans? And you all know what I'm talking about. And so, right. And so where I sit is right in the middle of that conversation, kind of translating between the two communities and saying, you have more alike than you have than your differences. And it would serve you to function in coalition and engage a contemporary Pan-Africanism, but we would have to respect each other's differences in order to engage in a type of Pan-Africanism. That's what we need to move towards.
Can we come words and then move on to the next question.
Just a little bit to add to support what's just said. We also have to think about how that creates a division and how that division has been around for many, many, many years so that we remain disconnected from each other. And we have to be aware that that is a tool, but we also have to be aware that we are not monolithic, right? There are diversities within all of us. However, the root of it is that we are descendants here in America of Africa and Africans, and so we cannot, there is no separation. There really is no separation, and that constant separation, whether you've experienced yourself or not, has been used as a tool to divide. So coming together collectively to talk about this is what we need to do, to just acknowledge how both sides are talking about that. So I really appreciate you acknowledging that.
I'm not going to say what I wanted to say because I'm excellent, and you really hit that nail right on the head in terms of really focusing on the benefits of us connecting, the benefits of us finding our commonalities. I mean, even if you go to Africa, different Africans from different countries have differences, but but they see the common bond. And what you got to kind of realize, it makes me think about a conversation I had with a brother that was from Jamaica a few years ago, and and I love Jamaica and the people I know there. I just came back from there, but this guy, unfortunately, he didn't see much in common he had with me, and I kind of got rude on him. I said, well, to that white man out there, you a nigga just like me in the United States. They'll kill both of us. They're not gonna put you in a special room just because you Jamaican and I'm black. We the same, man. Seriously. And I thought about that comment for years because I got in trouble for it. I get in trouble all the time for every time I open my mouth I get in trouble. But I said, well, was I being mean? Maybe I was pulling him down. So I didn't mean to do that. Because you'll see so many people that come from places where they're allowed access to their dignity. And and reason is very, very important. And the reason that question is such a great question, and it seems to lead into another question you have later about unity, is it seems to me that where you're going is how do we unify?
Absolutely.
How do we unify? And I'm gonna say this to Black Americans. We are, relative to people of color that I see around the world, we are really, really narcissistic, self-centered. We only focus on what's happening in America. We don't want to know what's going on in other countries. All we want to do is sit here. We think the world is no bigger than the United States and Donald Trump and everything else. And I go other places, and everybody up here gets to travel the world on some level, and there's so much respect and admiration they have for you. It really embarrassed me because I went places and I had supporters in countries I'd never been to that I hadn't thought much about. And I said, Boyce, what is wrong with you? You need to grow up and stop being so focused on what's happening in America. So that was my journey. And I realized that there are a lot of people like this. It's the brainwashing. It's what we go through. So I say everybody in here, if you want to very proactively take this to heart, make sure your children have their passport. Send them to other countries. It don't cost much more to go to the Caribbean than it does to go to Detroit. You'll go visit Africa, connect, because that's where your power is. That's where your strength is. That's where your base is. When you're doing business, you should be thinking about doing business globally with Black folks all around the world. And then you don't have to go across the street and beg that man for a job. You got connections everywhere. So it does benefit us to unify. And really, even if you think about, for example, in the Jewish community, I read books about other cultures to understand how other people deal with certain problems. And I'll tell you, before, maybe in the 1930s, they had a lot of similar issues. The Jews had their own versions of Coons that hated everything about being Jewish. And then you had the Jews they looked at as lower class and upper class and all of this stuff. And, well, you're from Eastern Europe, I'm from Russia, blah, blah, blah. But then Hitler came along and wanted to kill all of them. And when Hitler got there, they said, oh, we better stick together. We all on the chopping block. Black folks, we are all on the chopping block, so we have to stick together. So we got to overcome whatever divides us.
Very last comment. This is for the students here in the room. So what does that mean if you are a part of organizations? Black organizations, African organizations, that means you cannot be divided. You need to find your commonalities, and you need to throw events together, you need to throw programs together, you need to build together, you need to show this larger institution your collective unity. And if there's some understandings and learnings that need to happen, then we need to create spaces for those. But you who are part of organizations, you apply that to your position within those organizations, and don't create the division, show the collective.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move on to the third question. Thank you all for that very lively, those lively answers. And I think you all pretty much transitioned into our third question pretty well. Everybody all right? You doing good? Okay, just checking. So, in the context of African and Black conscious community, if at all possible, when we talk about unity, how do we unify the various different political ideologies and social identities, such as Black Lives Matter representatives, Pan-Africanists, those who are of the Divine Nine, Black Greek letter organizations, Nation of Islam, those who are Black and queer? How do we go about unifying all these different ideologies to where we actually move forward and progress towards Black liberation? And honestly, we're going to start with Dr. Boyce Watkins again on that one, if possible.
I was hoping you wouldn't call on me, but I'm messing with you. I've struggled with that a lot, because the hard part is that, everybody who looks like you ain't got your best interests at heart. Wow. It's so difficult sometimes, because you really do have some Black people that are working so hard to harm other Black people that you just don't know what to do. You just, and so my had gotten to the point where I said, I'm not really going to do unless I feel like you're hurting the people that I care about. But the idea of unifying can be difficult, because sometimes, if you get, let's say, properly assimilated Black folks who then go where their bread is best buttered, and they say, okay, my master wants me to attack Black people, that's how I'm gonna get my bills paid, and they're coming at you, Django, how can Django unify with Stephen? It's almost impossible. Django would just shoot him in the ass. There's nothing else he could do other than deal with him. And so sometimes unity, I think, is unity can be very powerful if you can't find that common ground. But you have to understand that sometimes you have enemies, both foreign and domestic. And there's sometimes where you just say, I don't know how we can unify, because you don't have the best interests of the community at heart when you do what you do. Now, I will say though that there are some divisions that are petty, some divisions that aren't relevant, and I think that a type of maturity is called for in terms of having a basic understanding of the fact that you're fighting for the same purpose. So, for example, let's say I identify with the Democrat. I say I'm a member of the Democratic Party. You say you're a member of the Republican Party, and we both know. Let's say at the end of the day, we both know that neither one of us were actually invited to the party. We both know that. I've talked to Black Republicans, some of whom really buy into that, and then I've seen Black Republicans who say, no, I know that they don't care about us, but this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm going to do because I believe it's going to help my people. Well, at that point, I say, okay, let's step aside from our labels, and let's remember we're both Black men, and we're both Black people, and we can find common ground, even if your approach is a little different from mine. So in those situations where that which you have in common exceeds that which is a direct conflict of interest, then you can seek the unity. But some cases, there's some people on the plantation that that are going to shut down every revolt that ever happens on the plantation because it's against their personal interests.
Okay.
I'm high on 1804, y'all, so all I could think was Mackendall. Mackendall just decided. I really am here to learn, so family, just let me have this. I just want to hear from Tariq right now and just listen up. I'm learning too. Thank you.
Y'all can give it up now. Slow ass claps. But my brother Boyce made a very good point. And when it comes to these organizations that claim to be Black, Because don't trip on the names. Some of the blackest names can be funded by those in the dominant society. And usually the dominant society will purposely fund groups with the blackest name, Alkaline Water, Hotep, Organization of Blacks, all that, and it's white people funding it. And when they come around us, we thinking black empowerment, we start getting some stuff done, then all of a sudden they change the direction, talking about, well, what about the gay community? What about the Hispanics? Let's include them. See, that's a very deliberate thing. People will get around us and then change the direction of what we're trying to do. So we should get with people who are funded by those of us in the community and who are very clear. The agenda is black empowerment. It's all about black empowerment, nothing more, nothing less. We got to be all about 100% black empowerment, not black and brown. We need to get off that black and brown stuff, family. Because who's the brown people? Let's be very clear about that. People in the Hispanic community, they don't classify themselves as brown. Most of them, 95% of them classify themselves as white. We better realize that. We're talking about black and brown unity, and you got Hispanic cops out here blowing our brains out. All right? So these are just harsh realities. We're in this on our own. Like John Henry Clark said, we have no friends. So you got to look at the person next to you and be about empowerment and friendship with that person. Thank you.
Okay. Responses. Professor, okay.
Yes, so some good points have been made here. I think that thinking through this, thinking about the different, because your question is about the different ideologies that exist, right? And so we know that there are black nationalists, we know that there are black Pan-Africans, we know that there are immigrationists like Garvey who are telling us we don't even have any business in this land. So there are different ideologies. We know that we don't all collectively agree on what the end goal is, but we know that there are different ways of thinking about it. And I think that we have to engage all of those different ways of thinking about it. But one of the points that I think that we need to get at is that we cannot even do any type of black collectivity or black unity, or rather, let me reframe that. We cannot talk about unifying or organizing with brown folks. We cannot talk about being in partnership with white allies or any of that such type of behavior until black people get themselves together, right? So how can a black people that still have not even done necessarily the work of engaging in a true collectivity or the work necessary for us to engage collectively be in partnership or in unity or in allyship with an outside group? So I see you making this point that we first have to heal and build before we can truly engage in partnership. And I think that another piece that we have to engage is that if black people want to do the work of unifying black people, and then we say, but you want to bring brown people into the equation, you want to bring gay people into the equation. The process that we have to understand is that there are some black people that are gay. Maybe folks don't want to hear that, but there are black people that are gay. Yes. Do you all hear what I'm saying? Yes, I do. So if we say, we're talking about black people, don't bring that woman stuff in here. Don't bring that gay stuff in here. Don't bring that whatever in here. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, brother. But if we do that, imagine how many black people we've lost in our efforts. Imagine how many black people we have lost in our efforts to engage in a collectivity. We must talk about all of our different complex identities as black people. And when we try to make blackness homogenous, y'all know what I mean when I say homogenous? Muted, one kind of not complex thing. What white supremacists have tried to do historically is say that black people are not complex. They are just black. The blacks are this type of way. What black people have always known is that we are a complex people, right? And that our complexity and that our conflict within each other is not always and forever an outgrowth of white supremacy. It's because we are an intelligent, complex people. So we have to think about this. We're only addressing black issues. For so long, what has been defined as black issues has been very limited. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Yeah. So we have to engage complexity of blackness in order to do a true collective movement forward. Or else, how many of us are going to work together like 13 of us are gonna be left at the end of the day. We ain't dealing with those black people, we ain't dealing with broke black people. It's gonna be 13 of us left. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Okay.
Let me respond a little bit to that.
Okay, we'll go Dr. J. Moore. Did you have something to say too? Yes. Okay, we'll go Dr. J. Moore, Tariq, and then Dr. Boyce. You have something too? And then
we'll touch on some of that.
We gotta go to the next question. It's okay, we'll get there.
The first thing that I think that is important if we go back to the ideologies is we have to acknowledge how are we disunited. So how are the Divine Nine different from Black Lives Matter? Or how is Black Lives Matter different from a Pan-Africanist movement? That's going to vary depending on the particular organization in the particular city or the particular institution it could be attached to. So it's gonna vary based on who the organizational leaders are. So there's no way to kind of talk about them as if they're all the same. And if to be transparent, I am a lifetime member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. However, to be honest, in the city of Sacramento, the grad chapter holds their meetings at the sheriff's office. I am also a member of the Sacramento chapter of Black Lives Matter. That's a direct conflict. I don't feel comfortable going to the sheriff's office when I don't respect, trust, or believe in who the sheriff is. And so I had to make a decision on what I was going to do. Was I going to continue to pay my money to this organization that's supposed to help the community, or was I going to lean into my blackness and my radical political beliefs? I have not attended a meeting since. That is no disrespect to my organization. I support the work they do. I just can't go to the sheriff's office, and I can't align myself with the police department in the city of Sacramento. Now, the police department could be different in somebody else's community, but in the community that I currently live in, that's going to be a no. But we have to figure out how we disunited first. And the biggest piece that we are both coming together in solidarity with is acknowledging all you people in the room who, again, are diverse in your identities. You are intersectional, your citizenship status, your sexual attraction, all your multiple different ways that you identify cannot just be silenced into Black. We have Black immigrants. That's a real issue. It's not just affecting Mexicans. That's a real issue. We have to stop saying that immigration doesn't affect Black people, because it definitely does. We have babies out here that are gay, and it's not a post-traumatic slave syndrome symptom. We cannot tell them that. We cannot tell them that you being gay is because of what happened. The brutalization and the perversion of what happened to our people most definitely happened. But there is an area of folks that we have to love on and not say that you are only gay because of that. Because people have been gay prior to us being colonized here. People have been gay forever, and different communities talk about your gender roles differently. It's not fixed. Even in our indigenous cultures, it's not always fixed. And I have to speak truth to power, because I have so many students who feel like they should take their life. They should commit suicide. They can't be themselves. They have to silence themselves. We have to lift them up and tell them that they are just as important, and not to separate their Blackness. We are all up here as different people. You brought us up here because we speak something different, but collectively, this is the power of us.
Okay, we're going to leave Dr. Boyce, then we're going to move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Please keep it within the 3-minute time frame if you can.
Okay, I'll be very brief. The thing is, when I talk about Black empowerment, that means all Black people, because all Black people are in the same boat. I don't like to separate Black people into any kind of groups. Like our brother Neil Lee Fuller said, we're all on the bottom of the slave ship. So differentiating between a light-skinned person on the bottom of the slave ship and a Black person who's gay on the bottom of the slave ship, that's almost irrelevant in the system of white supremacy when you're all being oppressed. What happens when people start talking about Black and gay, and we respect our gay brothers and sisters, but what happens, the dominant white society, they pick up on that and they start talking this nonsense about, well, being gay is like being Black. They start that garbage, and that's the problem that we have. they'll use us as the poster children to get benefits for them. They always do that. So we have to stop being the poster child for the white supremacists to benefit off of us. And then we're left holding the bag. And the same white supremacists talking about being black is the same thing as being gay. You have gay white supremacists out here. You have lesbian cops out here shooting black people, brutalizing black people. During slavery, you had a lot of gay slave owners out there in the slave plantations. You have gay people out here in Hollywood grabbing up on black men. Terry Crews just filed a police report, a gay white dude grabbing up on him. So we're still all in the system of white supremacy, and there are gay white supremacists out there.
Good job, Flex.
I'd like us also to remain focused on a lot of the issues that we're having when it comes to homosexuality or not, and dividing us all into groups. We need to think of our oppressor has also played a big part of that. He has homogenized milk. What other animal on the planet drinks another animal's milk? 40 times stronger in hormones than any woman's natural breast milk. So you're wondering why we're looking at this? It's not a major issue. We should stay focused on the causation, and it is, in fact, white supremacy that deals with you in water, has dealt with you through milk on a cow's tit. I mean, seriously, consider some of the things that have been done to us on the last 100 years. We can now understand what we're seeing among ourselves, but get past your own nose here and understand that the real issue isn't you. You are world. You are an entire worldview. So I need you to get past your own comforts and discomforts, whether somebody accepts you or not. Your sexuality should not be worn on your sleeve anyway. That's your business. I don't care who you been with. I don't care where you're going. You stay focused. All these other things are somehow just major distractions. You're all off onto somebody else. I mean, really? Stay focused. We are black, and this is about our one issue.
And then we're going to move on to the next question.
Okay, so, what I will say is that what's really disturbing to me about these conversations about these intersectional issues, whether you're talking about, gay rights or feminism or immigration in particular, those issues, we know they affect black people. We know black people need to talk about these issues. At least this black man does and respects that. The problem with that, though, is that I'm tired of black people always taking our cues from white folks. Yeah. If they start talking about gay rights, then suddenly we start talking about gay rights. If immigration suddenly becomes an issue, then suddenly we feel like we got to talk about immigration. And you turn on CNN and you see black people on CNN, and all they're doing is talking about whatever topic the white man told them to talk about that week, using the same damn language, repeating the same damn phrases, the same damn social engineering, the same damn repetitive crap that somebody else just said right before them. I don't like that. That bothers me because we don't have the ability then to set our own agenda. So, look, not too long ago, I had a brother on my podcast, and I got some pushback. Why you got that gay man on your podcast? Why he on there? I said, he's gay? I didn't even know. We didn't talk about that. And I said, you know what? We put our labels, those other labels, to the side and realized we were two black men who care about black people. And that's why we were talking. Seriously. Now, if he had come in and he'd come in repeating the same language I see everybody else using on TV and somehow convincing me to be gay or saying it's okay that we emasculate all these black men on television, putting black men, the easiest way to be famous as a black man is to put on a wig and a dress. That's what they want. They don't want real men in the community, and it pisses me off. So, if black people are going to have conversations about, of course we got to talk about what's going on as far as whether it's heterosexuality, homosexuality, all of that. We know that that's there. We should talk about it. Of course we got to talk about the rights of women. I mean, my God, you came from a woman. How could you disrespect a black woman? That I never knew this idea of disrespecting black women because that was my royalty in my family. Of course you got to, immigration matters, right? We know this, but when those conversations happen, there's a difference between an authentic black conversation being led by black people versus a so-called black conversation that is really a white conversation in blackface. That's the problem. That's what you got at places like Cal State, where last year, when y'all had this conference, and you had all those black students in there disrespecting Minister Farrakhan the way they did, and I'm sitting there thinking, you dumbass, this man was fighting for your parents when these white folks wanted to murder them. So at least show some respect, man. Express your disagreement if you want to. We should have diversity of opinion. Homogeneity is not a good thing. But you got to show respect, because you got to understand at the end of the day, their goal is to dismantle the black community, dismantle the black family, and castrate the black male. And that's why I reject it.
I got an extra that one. Oh, yes. The voice holding on the mics. That's what I was saying. Thank you.
Yes, I think some good, necessary points have been made. I think that particularly the point about black people being reactionary to whatever white media tells us to respond to is something that we really have to address. And in the very same breath, I can also say that I don't think necessarily that that this was brought up earlier, that specifically black queer communities, black LGBTQIA communities are necessarily always just kind of becoming reactionary or being pawns to white queer communities. I think that what we have to do is realize that while we questions about gender, that the only reason that black women engage critical conversations about gender is because we're taking the cue from white liberals or white women feminists. Let's be clear. Sojourner Truth was talking about gender issues and critiquing what it means to be a woman before any white feminist roamed the earth. Are y'all hearing me? Sojourner Truth said, "Ain't I a woman?" And what she did was she identified that the cultural construct of womanhood does not apply to black women. So what did she say? She said, "I'm not even with you, white woman." She said this in front of a bunch of white women at a conference. And she, as a woman that was enslaved, was not even supposed to be speaking. But what did she do? She identified the concept of womanhood as culturally constructed. Do y'all hear me? Yeah. So, when we argue that black people on the margins, let's say, for instance, black women, black queer people, whatever it may be, are just simply being reactionary to white supremacy, look at the history of it. We've been talking about this way before white people even got the vocabulary for it. You understand? And so, in that, we have to be very careful about engaging the complexities of this conversation. Lastly, I knew there was one more point. Is there an attack on black masculinity? Y'all think there is? Yeah. I think that we have to really talk about that, if there's an attack on black masculinity. But I also think at the very same breath, if that's real and there's an attack on black masculinity, then we have to define what black masculinity is to begin with. How can we even say that there's an attack on black masculinity when we can't even agree on what black masculinity is supposed to be? People get angry when those with a feminist ideology say that that gender is a social construct. You have black people saying, no, don't adopt all that Eurocentric foolishness. Gender isn't a social construct. There's men, there's women. Men have their roles, women have their roles. Tell me, when did that start? Tell me, when did that start? Women and men are both fully intellectually capable human beings. Thus, in a household, for instance, or in a community where there are men and women, those who are good at what they're good at doing take on those roles. But when we say men make the decisions and women listen and children listen too, and that's how it's always been because that's the African way. Let me tell you, I'm African. It's not the African way. We want to talk about critiquing Eurocentrism in black communities. This concept of like this firm, rigid, what masculinity is and what femininity is hella European. Do y'all hear me? That's hella European. So we want to critique Eurocentrism but at the same breath say we are an African people, and then say that this is how African men and women are supposed to show up in the world. Real men, real women. We must define what exactly that means. Because if somebody has defined for us what masculinity is supposed to be and what femininity is supposed to be, and anybody that transgresses or exists outside of that then gets called an attack on the community, let us be more critical. Y'all hear me? Yeah. Let us be more critical.
Okay, what we'll do, since Flex is saying I'm struggling with raising my black fist, I might look to the crowd, and the crowd just start putting up their black fist. That's how I know, okay, the crowd wants us to kind of wrap it up, all right? So y'all can participate in that as well.
Keep it going.
Yeah, okay. So, we're gonna move on to the next question. That was very lively, and I think it's gonna get.
Oh, y'all gonna leave that one on?
The thing is, because the next question is very much connected to this question, we'll start off with you. Okay. Give me 1 second, because I want to go back to real quick what Dr. Boyce Watkins was saying in reference to a conference we had back in the beginning of the year, in January. This was in conjunction with the African Black Coalition, which is another organization. Keynote speaker was Minister Farrakhan, and that had very mixed reviews. So just so you all can understand the context of the question that he was answering, that was what that is. So you guys can talk to us about that afterwards. Key, you gonna ask the next question?
Yeah, I'll just get into the question since everyone has answers. So for the next question, has the lack of the stability of the Black family caused the values of the Black family system moving forward?
There Isaiah, yes. Okay. So we got to unpack what our beautiful sister said. Because the thing is, when we start misrepresenting and changing the definition of what gender roles should be, then that causes a lot of confusion. With men and women, we're biological creatures, and we have a basic biological role in relationships, and everything else is built from that. But the basic biological role, the woman is usually the nurturer, the male is usually the protector. That's the basic biological role that has helped men and women survive for centuries, okay? When we start trying to mix that up, saying that these roles are not right, we need to mix it up a little bit, all of a sudden we get confusion. We get men out here wearing dresses and anklets and skirts and tongue rings. And we do not have a protection factor within our communities. And it has always been an African thing to be a protector. It was an African thing for Black women to nurture. Black women are still the world's nurturers, even in the dominant white society. That's why they would bring Black women into their homes to nurture their children. So that nurturing thing, that's who we are. It's not a bad thing. The white supremacist feminists came along saying that that's a bad thing. We need to change the roles up a little bit. But the thing is, they were running game on us because they never got rid of their men. You don't hear white feminists talk about we don't need no man. That's something that they brought to us. We ran with it, and then we're all in disarray. So we have to be very careful with some of the ideologies that they bring to us, and we shouldn't adopt that ideology.
Okay. Take that one. Dr. Andrea Moore.
All right. So again, to go back to our very first question, we're talking about social consciousness, right? And remember that as humans evolve, so should our consciousness. And so with all due respect, we understand that there have been designated roles for the family members based on where we were at specific points in time. So for example, women not working, women taking care of the children. As we have advanced with education and working on both sides, so too are the roles that we're going to play. And as those roles switch, the danger is in vilifying either the father for nurturing his son, kissing his son, right? We even have an issue with daddies kissing their sons because of the homophobia, right? So we have to take a serious look in understanding what can we learn from the past, what has not necessarily worked, what has damaged our children. And how can we learn from what has damaged our children and take that information and find a new way to love and teach, which in turn may also change some of our roles. Not ultimately our positions in the family are changed, but how we share the responsibility, because so many of our males, for example, are emotionally unavailable in romantic relationships because they grow up in societies that don't allow them to express the multitude of emotions they may have. Because again, being a male means that you can only be macho. And if you're not super hard and tough all the time, you a punk, you soft, you feminine, effeminate. You're a woman. The worst thing a man can be called is a woman. A P-U-S-S-Y if we really want to go all the way there, right? So we again have to examine what we can learn from our grandmothers, our aunties and our mothers, and how we were raised, and how did that damage us? How did that affect us? How did that help us become whole beings? There needs to be some modification because our children, our babies tell us. When we look in their eyes, they tell us. Beating them as a form of control. Yes, we need physical discipline, but to beat you is different than to whoop you, right? So we have to have these serious conversations that are not going to be comfortable because we're evolving. Our social consciousness is evolving. As human beings, we're evolving. But it doesn't mean that we vilify each other when those roles change. We just have to examine. And it's not going to be the same thing across the board in your household or in my household.
I'd like to get in on that just a little, and without vilifying I really want us to stay focused, and I think we need to focus on what's caused this. It's toxic womb syndrome now for over 40 years, women. We have been producing children with all these toxins in our bodies for the last 40 and 50 years, and no one's thought once to give. The attention needs to stay focused with the white man that has kept us fed, given us air. He's just destroying my planet with all the things that are being done in our environment. That's why it's the most important thing right now. Men, take back your rightful duty. Know your earth, know your soil. Protect my planet thereby protecting my womb, and we will have better generations. But while we waste our time right now discussing all of the symptoms, you're talking about its symptoms. Leave the symptoms alone. You're wasting time. And I don't want to waste anyone's education. I don't mean no harm right now. I really want us to just stay focused. We need to deal with causation, the cause of it, not its symptoms. And I love my brothers, and they are true men, with feelings or without. How they're raised doesn't even bother me. They're men when I see them. I don't judge. In our own eye, we should find the love we need for each other. Do you understand that? In fact, close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. Just please close your eyes. And I'd like you to just breathe. And know that you are, in fact, the living body of your own ancestors. And in that body, you have these courages that came long before you. Long before you. Inhale them. Relax in them. Know them. We need each other to look. I don't have a right to define you. You will only define yourselves, and I don't want to waste time with any of this. Thank you.
And then Dr. Boyce, did you want to say anything? You're good.
Well, you asked whether or not the breakdown of the family had. Repeat that part of the question so I can make sure I nail it. I want to.
The lack of stability of the Black family causing the regression of the Black and African culture?
I mean, first of all, the simple answer to that question is hell yes. Right? I mean, there's no greater factor that has harmed the Black 40 years than the breakdown of the family. And if you go to the causation that she talks about, you obviously link it to mass incarceration. You link it to the war on drugs. You link it to the CIA dropping cocaine into Black neighborhoods. You link it to all of that. It's all connected. We know this, right? So effectively, what happens is that you've seen, again, through this white supremacist social engineering, which comes from both the Democratic and the Republican parties, the liberals and the conservatives have unified in one thing. They've unified in their hatred of black people. It's just a matter of how much pain you want to receive. You go left or right, because we know how many black men Bill Clinton sent to prison. And so when you look at that and you see that you have, especially if you see in media, you'll see the effects of this all over media. Watch a show like Love and Hip Hop, and look at how many damaged souls there are on these shows. Children who, it's not uncommon for them to say, yeah, my mama was hooked on crack, and that's why I feel the way I feel. And my daddy was never there for whatever reason, largely in many cases because he was incarcerated. And so what you end up seeing is this extreme disappointment. There was a study in The Economist that said that for every 1% increase in the black male incarceration rate, there's about a 2.2% decrease in the percentage of black women who get married. And this was written by white folks who in England who were studying what's happening with African Americans. And so you see a lot of anger, you see a lot of distrust, you see a lot of pain, a lot of trauma from the males and the females. And I'm a father of daughters, and I hold a very high standard for any man that they bring around me, which is probably why they don't bring the men around me very often. And I remember my daughter brought some guy around, and I shook his hand, and he shook my hand like he was a 5-year-old girl and didn't even look me in the eye, and he just, you know, and I said, well, what's he, well, tell me more about him. Well, he didn't have a job, got a couple of kids, and one on the way with these different women, ain't taking care of none of them. And I said, you know, I didn't say he's a PUSSY. I said, he's a pussy. I said, get that pussy out of here. You know, that is seriously. And so here's what's kind of interesting to me, that you're seeing this very natural frustration from everyone, right? You know, when I'm seeing the women, I see women who remind me of my mother, my sister, my daughter, and all the women that have stood by black men and loved them through everything. And they're frustrated because they're seeing all this chaos and all this nonsense, you know, coming from black men for whatever reason. And then you see a lot of brothers who, many of whom are trying to do the right thing, who are not trying to harm anybody. Ain't nobody trying to sexually assault nobody. Ain't nobody trying to, you know, seriously, I'm not talking about every guy. I'm talking about the good guys here who feel under attack. You know, when like this one lady who, I guess she was called herself a black feminist. She has a big platform, and she wrote some article, or she cited some article saying straight black men are the white people for black people. Anybody see that article? Yeah. And that just, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, and you read the article, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. She's repeating, like she's parakeeting everything that the white feminists are saying, the Margaret Sanger soldiers that are out here, and it doesn't mean I'm anti-feminist. I mean, I'll tell you guys the truth. I'm in a very deep, loving relationship with a black scholar who is a proud feminist. She's a proud black feminist. But, you know, but we are able to find our common ground because we know that these white folks are full of shit. We know that some of what they're feeding you is a hatred of the black male, a constant attack on the black male. And I'm going to tell you what, as one of the men who tries his best to be as supportive as possible, I'm getting sick of that. You know, so I'm not the white man. The white man has done things to the white woman that I can never do to you. I never grew up in a household where the black woman was oppressed and all these other things. My grandmother built me. My mother built me. All these women built me. So I don't know nothing about all this oppression you complain about. So, you know, as a man who really wants to be as supportive as possible, my hope is that when you come through and you're trying to make the change, you're trying to deconstruct and reconstruct something better, that you come through and you have a little more precision in how you lash out with your anger. You know the difference between your friends and your enemies, and you don't come in with a sledgehammer trying to chop the balls off of every black man within a 50-mile radius, because that's how we feel. You see that in media, you watch a scandal. Oh, well, the black man, ain't no good black men around, so she might as well be the white man's side chick, right? You're seeing all these media influencers that are telling black women, give up on black men, they ain't worth nothing, you need to come over here and be with this white man. That's what you're being fed constantly, and it's right to say something about that. And anybody who's got some sense will be able to see through that, but unfortunately, because many of us are miseducated from an early age in white supremacist educational systems like this one, where we're never taught anything good about being black, you just run into zombies. A large part of our community is asleep.
2 words.
Okay, go ahead, 2 words.
Family. It's been 10 years since I had a tell-eye vision. Tell-eyes in vision. There's things we call TVs. Throw them out. I need you to decide what it is you're learning and how you're receiving. You wear your head wraps, and that's all to make sure your head is receiving its antennas out so that the spirits of the ancestors can always touch you in that manner. Well, throw out your TVs. Tell-eye visions must go out. This way you're not bombarded with all these different things, because we all need to stay focused. We need to stay focused right now, and only thing you need to hear is the spirit within you when you wake up. It's the one thing that does not lie. So listen to your own guide. Turn the white man completely off. You will live fine. We've got educators all around us that are providing us with nutrients and pieces that we can always learn and absorb and go forward. We have to trust each other in our own educational programs, starting with our babies. We need to educate them regardless of what we've been given. We must take back that part of us. That's how you stand strong. And we'll talk about the finances as soon as we get to that.
That's good. Thank you, Renee. Okay. Guys, a couple minutes and then we're going to transition. Just so you guys know, we're going to ask three more questions, and then we're going to transition into a Q&A from the audience. Now, they've been passing out the papers and stuff like that. So, let me come up here. If the folks asking the questions and answers, if you all can come to the front and do one last round so they can possibly have their question answered, that would be great. We're going to do a rapid fire with that. So, Mr. Fumilala, thank you.
So I've been paying close attention to everything that has been said on this very, I would argue, very touchy topic, right? Yeah. What y'all think? Yeah. Specifically when we're talking about gender. It's very touchy. And I'm grateful to you, Sister Renee, for recentering us, like spiritually in the moment, because that's where we need to be. We need to be able to effectively communicate. I argue in my work, and in my life, and I try to kind of engage this consistently, that the greatest tool of white supremacy has been to effectively keep Black people from being able to communicate with each other. That the greatest tool of white supremacy has been keeping Black people from being able to communicate with each other. So what a beautiful thing it is that we are capable of communicating with each other on the stage about things that are touchy, right? So that means that we have to continue to do it. So then, if they put Black people, if they put Africans in a slave ship and they put different Africans of different ethnicities in the same slave ship that spoke different languages so that they couldn't communicate with each other and figure out their way out of the problem, that was strategic. And white supremacy will continue to do that now and say that Black women and men are against each other in some way, shape, or form, keeping us from effectively communicating with one another. But I won't be a pawn to that. I'll never be a pawn to that. I critique the way in which we engage gender in this world, and I critique the way in which we engage race. I know how they intersect. And I will never open my mouth to say that Black men aren't my brothers. Never. Nobody will ever hear that. But what we find is that any Black woman who is ready and willing to critique gender oftentimes gets thrown with this kind of idea on her that she is oftentimes anti-Black man. We need to be more critical than that. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Yeah. That we can critique gender, that we can critique gender roles without immediately thinking that we are attacking Black men. Let me be clear. There have been a number of different concepts that have been addressed on this particular issue thus far. So, number one, Brother Tariq Nasheed, you said that men play a biological role in society, in communities, specifically then let's say in Black communities, and that we don't want to mix gender roles. How many people agree with this in here? That men play a biological, I want to check the room in terms of how we're all feeling about this argument. Okay, so how many people agree that men play a biological, not a sociological, but a biological role? Raise your hand if so. Okay, thus, great. We understand that men and women are different biologically. Yes, we can agree upon that. When we make those biological distinctions, oftentimes what we're talking about are testosterone and estrogen, yes? Right? right? Testosterone and estrogen. And so oftentimes what we find is that when we think about the way that we understand men and women's roles in society, we're talking about, well, men have testosterone, women have estrogen. But both men and women have testosterone and estrogen. Both men and women have testosterone and estrogen. Y'all hear where I'm going? Now, if both men and women have testosterone and estrogen, then this means that yes, men have disproportionately higher amounts of testosterone and women have disproportionately higher amounts of estrogen. What we do is that we link estrogen to emotionality. We link testosterone to that which is logical. Do y'all hear me?
Right.
We link testosterone to that which is logical. Then, when we,
People are putting their fist up because they want, I guess,
No.
y'all agree or y'all want me to be quiet?
Please let her finish. Let her finish.
No, wait.
She already is almost done.
She's almost done. Get the vibe of the crowd. A black fist just signifies black power in this moment.
I didn't know or agree or
Professor Pamela, in a minute or so, wrap it up, please. And finish your point. To the next question.
I will continue to say that if we link estrogen to emotionality but testosterone to logic, what are we actually doing? Women have the capacity to be logical and men have the capacity to be emotional. And when we say that men can't be emotional and they're just logical, we do something wrong to our black boys that think that they can't cry and end up committing suicide because masculinity is so rigid. And when we say that women are emotional and that they're not logical, they are not intellectually capable of making their own decisions and that they cannot run their own lives because that is men's roles. What are you actually talking about? You are saying that women don't have the emotional capability or the intellectual capability of running themselves. Let us not do that European work. Lastly, breakdown of the black family is absolutely necessary for us to address. And we also have to say that black women are not asserting that we don't need black men. We know that we need each other, but we know that in order to bring ourselves to the highest expression of our true goodness, we have to be critical of each other from a place of what? Love.
So, now everyone seems very much so invested and interested in this question and conversation. So, I'm going to say, would you all like us to continue to dive more into this conversation right now? Your question and answer period is at the end. Or would you guys like for us to move on?
Let Tariq respond. Tariq!
Y'all better pass this mic down.
Let him respond.
My sister was saying that the testosterone and estrogen thing, and it seems like we make it seem like the sisters cannot be emotional, they can't be this. When we talk about testosterone, we're talking about protection. We're talking about the man being able to protect the family. That's what we're doing with it. And a lot of things that happens in our communities is because there is a lack of protection. There's a lot of children out here being molested by baby mama boyfriends, cousins, uncles, because there's not a male protector in that family. A lot of people come into our communities harming our children because the protection factor isn't there. So when we talk about testosterone, we're talking about that from a biological standpoint where we can protect our community. So we're not trying to minimize sisters. We know you got testosterone, but you cannot protect the communities like it needs to be protected. So that's something that we have to be very realistic about. So this is why we have to understand the roles that men and women should have in families. That's what I'm saying.
Well, thank you for those very great answers. So we're going to transition to our next question now. And we're going to switch the subjects. We'll revisit this towards the end. We're almost wrapping it up. So with this question being directed at Dr. Boyce Watkins to begin with, it's basically asking this idea of financial freedom and economic empowerment. So how should culture and the understanding of what it is be utilized to develop a black economy? Where do we start? What do we re-examine as a people? And then also, you know, we in the BSU, we follow you, we get your weekly, almost daily emails. And, you know, what we see a lot is this idea of digital currency and Bitcoin. So if you could talk more about is Bitcoin and other digital currencies viable tools for us to invest in to help us advance Black economics in our culture. So basically take that away and answer that how do you see best fit.
Okay. To start with the basic economic premise on which we should discuss any of this, the first thing I really want to say to Black people is, you're not white. And I know it's a shock to some of y'all. It knock you out your chair, but you're not white. And the reason I think it's very important to say that is because sometimes I'll get flack when I say all Black people should invest. Every Black person, even if you don't run a business, you should own a piece of a business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll say, well, what's wrong with just, having a job and just working for a company like white people do? I went to college, my white friends, that's what they do. Why can't I do that if I'm Black? And what I tell them is that you have to understand that, and I'm willing to bet you that Dr. Johnson Knight is going to hit on some of this as well. People don't understand that economics is warfare. That economics is basically a tool or a weapon that is used to protect and sustain those that you care about. So, unfortunately for us, economically, we're kind of like the uninvited stepchildren to the big white party. White folks built those businesses and those corporations to strengthen and empower mostly white men and a few white women. That's why the major beneficiaries of affirmative action are now white females. And so when you go to Stanford University and you get your degree and the white guy next to you goes to Stanford and gets that same degree, somehow, it's shocking to me that people are shocked when the studies show that y'all don't get the same job opportunities. That shows me that you don't understand the game that you're playing, because this is a game of favoritism, protectionism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That same study that can be written about job discrimination in 2017 was the same studies they were writing in 1987. It'll be the same studies they're writing in 2047. It's not going to change because white people are not going to stop being white. And now here's the thing though. I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think it benefits us to sit around and complain about white people all day. They don't care. They're wondering why we complain so much, but also they're wondering why we think that another community feels that it's their responsibility to take care of us. Right. I don't know many Asian people who expect the Jewish community to take care of the Asian community. I've never heard a Jew say, I wish the Arabs would give us more jobs, or Hispanic people say, I need the Chinese people are keeping all the jobs in Chinatown, they need to give some jobs to us. But we tend to sort of stick with this weird issue where we're constantly knocking on this door where we're not invited and wondering why we're either not let in, or if we are let in, we're put in a subordinate position. Because the bottom line is back to human nature. If you come to live in my house, first thing is you probably won't get to live in my house because that's for me and my children. But if I let you in, you're not going to come in my house and move the furniture around. You're not going to get to sleep in the master bedroom. You're going to sleep in the basement, and you're going to work for that. And if you complain, you can just go. Right. And because in the back of my mind, as nice as I might be to you, I'm wondering, well, ain't you got somewhere to go? Where's your family at? Right? So I think that for black people, when you think about the economic game, what you have to understand is that you're in a general. Tariq said earlier when he said you have no friends. He mentioned this, he was quoting someone, but he brought up that excellent point. When it comes to economics, you have no friends. So I'm not saying that we can't do a lot of what we've been doing already, but the economic conversation in every black household must change. That conversation must center around the creation and the development of institutions. The reasons black people don't have as much power as we deserve to have is because we do not have institutions. I was in Trinidad and Tobago. I saw a sign. The sign said, united we bargain, divided we beg. And I said, oh my God, I need to take that sign home and to black people, because that's exactly the position that we're in. We are trained to take our very, very best, our best and brightest, all of our talent, and we disperse. All of us walk out of this room and we scatter, and we all go work for whichever white person has given us a job, whichever sponsor we found that's helping us to pay our bills. And this is really detrimental to the black male. I believe that a lot of the reason that the black woman has lost her ability to trust, I'm talking about on average, her ability to trust the black man as the protector that I believe that the black man is supposed to be, Again, I'm sorry, I'm an old school Southern black man. My daddy was a man who said, you come to my house and hurt my family, I'm gonna kill you. And that's how I was raised. And the reason that she's lost that trust is because you don't have the strength that you need in order to be the protector and the provider. You don't have the ability to go out into this other man's economy and create your own opportunities. All you know how to do is fill out a job application and then get mad because you didn't get the job. And let's not even talk about brothers that have criminal records. We know that that's done. So what I'm saying to you, and we can have a conversation about the women as well, so what I want to say to you is that in every black household, here's what needs to happen. First and foremost, every black child in this country and abroad must learn the fundamentals of starting their own business by the age of 12. By the age of 12 is a rite of passage. I say 12 because I set the bar low, because there's people who really believe black people can't do nothing on our own and without somebody helping us. So I say 12, but really I mean 6 or 7. Really I'm saying that the economic conversation has to be very early. It starts with ownership. I mean, my God, we got all these kids that know how to play football and basketball and recite Nicki Minaj lyrics. It doesn't take to have that effort to learn how to start a business. In fact, to get to the average job applicant fills out 40 applications before they even get an interview. The amount of time it takes to fill out 40 job applications is far longer than it takes to fill out a form and start an LLC and take a little class on how to start a business. Now, you might not like it. It may seem unfair that you have this mandate on you to build in your community, but goddamn it, your community ain't got nothing built. We need to build something. We need a generation of builders. Period. So, we must build, we must develop institutions for the next generation. He's putting up the fist. That means I'm going to shut up in a minute. Number 2, remember that there are 3 major pillars of wealth. America is a capitalist society. Capitalism ain't going away. It ain't going to change no matter how much we protest. So in order to understand this society, what you must realize is that there's 3 major pillars of wealth. One is the ownership of stocks and bonds. It takes $5 to buy shares of stock. They got apps on your phone. You can buy share stock in 5 minutes. That's the rich and the poor. When the money on stocks, poor people might be tempted, if they're convinced by media, to spend the money on rims or hair or shoes or whatever it is, right? Stocks and bonds is one area. Ownership of real estate is the second major area. You're either a landowner or you are a renter. If you rent for your entire life and tell me you can't afford to buy a house, I feel bad for you because you don't understand that you've probably bought 2 or 3 houses for your landlord. The third pillar and I'll finish with this. The third pillar is ownership of businesses. If you ever want to get a chance to really make money moves, not Cardi B bullshit money moves, I'm talking about real money moves. If you ever want to make real money moves, learn how to become a good entrepreneur. I get tired of seeing young black men who are experts at football and basketball, but don't know anything, even the basics about how to provide for yourself and survive in this society. So that's what I would say to you, and believe me, this isn't what I just teach my son, this is what I teach my girls, because my God, I can't tell you how many times I've seen women in horrible relationships because they never learned how to provide for themselves economically. You don't have to link on to that horrible man just because he's got a little bit of money. You can make money on your own. So there you go.
All right. Dr. Watkins. Anyone, real quick. Sure. Sister Renee.
Wow, family, I had to get on this
one.
This is mine. And I want to give thanks to Dr. Boyce Watkins because it is true. It's a pillar of 3. Where he's trusting with the stock thing and going online. I am so undigital. I want to shake some real coins. And I want y'all out there buying gold and silver. I want you to bring it home. I do want to point out a few things though. We have a lot in common. As I came onto this campus, I couldn't help and see how, and I love it, Long Beach, but how Cal State University Long Beach has protected you in such a wonderful world. It's almost like another planet in here. It has everything. And it's introduced you so slowly but gradually and has actually consumed you now in what I call digital. All of you are waking up with this thing called chip in your cards. And there is rumor, and if you even think you hear a rumor that this chip is going to end up in the body and the belly of your babies, what are you supposed to do? Find another way. You don't allow someone to make a fee, a transaction, whatever he's doing with this 2-cent card. You're supposed to know and look at it and understand that this account number is in fact your inmate number. You are an inmate at this system, whatever card you carry, whatever they put on it. You can have Disney, your face, your car, your dog, your whatever. I see so many bodies of your babies. You know, you can't liberate a people unless they first understand they're enslaved. I really want you to consider how many ways we are. I can think back to the roughly 15 or 16 years old, my first apartment, and the first thing I had was a light bill, Southern California Edison. All these years later, Southern California Edison still refers to me as a number. Do you understand? So I have been an inmate to the system of Southern California Edison so long, they don't even send a card. I'll get a red stamp on it if I'm 3 days late. About to turn it off, urgent, read. You understand? We are all seemingly allowing something. It's almost as if I watched this thing unfold in front of me. Your phones have told you to allow, and you just continue to allow. You're in such an allow moment that it's making me sick. You're going to allow yourself to just allow. They're like sheep, and if he changes anything, it just turns you into a new world. You're just going with the wind. Have you ever seen sheep on a pasture? Sheep just, you never know what direction it's going to go in, but they stay in their herd, and they just keep going. We are not sheep. We're going to have to act like we intend to make good here for our babies that haven't been born yet. You see, we don't live for our own self here. We're here as an advantage. Your ancestors are grateful, God. They know that they're grateful you're here. But we actually live for the betterment of babies that haven't been born yet. And if you don't understand that one commonality, that's the common thing. That's a stay focused. Let's keep going. That unifies us right now. Just that one thought. That I live and exist for the betterment of babies like me being born today, whether it's mine or not. Whether I'm gonna have one or don't want one, whether I'm vegan, whether I eat meat, whatever. I've never seen a people, all of us, and it is generated from televisions, that have every reason to divide each other. It's like a church. You know, churches, I found out Christianity had over 17,000 different little limbs of it. It's all kinds of them. 17,000 from one Christianity? Tell me that church ain't broke. Is that church not broken? So why are we going to set out on the wrong foot and break ourselves with differences? Let us unify on one simple thing. We're living today to better the babies that haven't even been born yet. Planet, bellies, all of it. You men have a lot to do, and I know you've been through a hell of a lot thus far. But when I look to the right of me, I see that I am well guarded as a woman, and I appreciate your presence. When I give thanks, I also heard someone here at the table mention that of Farrakhan, and Farrakhan did lay seeds upon my heart, that I could change my community. Why do you think I want to make sure that it's pretty outside? It's immaculate. It's going to stay that way, because you're going to wonder what she's doing in there. I'm going to raise my flag right in front of you. I'm going to plant my seed where I know if you burn this down, you're going to take 4 of your own. I'm not looking for a Black Wall Street or anything else, because as far as I'm concerned, my history has shown me that so much has started and failed. I do know if I could ask of anything of this town, this group, this body of family, let us consider the promissory notes, be it a degree on the wall or the one you carry in your pocket. This government has sold nothing but promissory notes thus far. Not one of them is guaranteeing any of us anything. I wish it weren't so, but it's true. If we could just understand that while we're busy trying to earn this, if we're the beginning of the pyramid, it starts in labor, the FICA, NICA, and PSYCA, no matter who you work for. If you're still working for someone else, they FICA, NICA, and PSYCA you. And for that blessing, they take what they want, and then you're told to go out and spend in retail. The state here done went up tax twice this year. Now 11 cents on every dollar he create. This is something they create. This paper has no more value than 16 cents. Talk to your human resource payroll persons and you'll find they're taking 16.5. You are literally a half a cent behind on every dollar you made 2 weeks ago. Before the state take theirs. And then you got the banker. This is a pimp who tracks his hoes. If you're not knowing what this is a pimp who tracks his hoes. And you want him to know where you are. Just keep going at it. What do you mean I touch my money? Where did that shit start? That you can't touch the money you made. How do you allow someone to tell you to take my car? You need not ever come back here again. I'll take you anywhere in the world you want to go. Your passport will do the same, and you can take to any of our countries cash. While we're here, I want you young people to understand that if you make money, any money, come in your name, it is purely legal for you to take your money and change it into silver coins, gold coins, whatever. If you got the presidents, both Hillary's and Clinton's and everybody else stealing gold from your money, you take that shit back here with his face. You take his face and you throw it back in his ass. You go buy it. You go buy it just because you should act like pirates. Women, we want to take the power from the bank and put it back with our black men. Let him guard and protect me like they're doing right over there on that wall. You see how well guarded I am? Give thanks to these brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, this shit, this has no value. All that we work for, all that you even don't mind space for, has absolutely no value. In Egypt, they couldn't take a $20 bill. In Ghana, Kumasi, Accra, no one would take a $20 bill. Sure they will at the airport. They'll be sure to trade my money there. But when I get out there to buy from my locals, you know them that ain't in a shopping mall? That kind. They can't take a $20 bill made in the U.S. Why? Because it wouldn't give them anything when they go to trade it in. The same thing happened in Mexico. I was just there too. Same thing there. You could do it in an airport, but when you get out there with the hard, grounds, you go and find people that look like you, they can't take your $20 bill. They need a $100 bill only. And they prefer the new ones. He done put a tracking device on that. When you got a government that sits around and comes up with ideas and now tracking even a $100 bill, do you realize they came down on some mafia-minded persons? I get along great with them. I love a hustler. If he's hustling his heart, we're going to get along. But the truth is, they came down on that mafia there because they had those stacked in between us when they first introduced them. I understood it was more or less to make sure they were circulating here, just to make sure they would actually come and sell that money found in downtown LA. I would suggest then you legally, let's stay focused on gold and silver. I'm coming. Okay. Let's stay focused on gold. We can pick this up right here in Long Beach, in front of Costco, right there at my favorite shopping center. It's Turner's Outdoorsman, where those who qualify, can buy guns and ammo, another good thing to stack. But you can also buy gold and silver right there in the same lot. You and I and each of us every day of our life can buy up to $9,999 of this every day and never report it to Sam. It's not illegal for you to take the money that has already been taxed and do what you will with it. Leaving it in taxation, in the pyramid of taxation, makes you a fool. And I don't want anybody in here acting like that. I need you to take your power back. Be happy you can. Take your money, trade it up and bury it. We'll get back to that later. There should come a time in our moment very soon that you and I are trading gold and silver like they did cowrie shells. I do not have to take a piece of paper that is worth nothing. So I can't even take it with me. We got some serious issues here working our asses off for this shit. Right. If it ain't worth nothing, throw it back at him. Trade it. Take it. If he wants gold and silver, so do I. Right. If he out there swooping it all up everywhere, I want it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now, here's what's going to happen. We're going to ask these next 3 questions. We're going to go, these are the questions. You have these. We have the question and answers from the community. We're gonna do rapid fire if we can, maybe like 30-second response, and then try to get into, we're gonna do that in the question and answer period. These last 3 questions, couple minute responses, and then move on, okay? So we can transition into our next phase of the conference. So Kiki, go ahead.
So for this next question, we're going to switch gears again. Yes, and this one is going to be for Dr. Andrea Marr to answer first. And so the question is, how do we utilize media and this idea of propaganda to further advance our struggle for Black liberation? And has social media positively or negatively impacted Black African culture?
This mic works right here. Yes, there it is.
Right.
All right, so I think I got the gist of what you said for the second question. Can you repeat the first one more time?
First one?
Yes, please.
The first one, how do we utilize media and this idea of propaganda to further advance our struggle for Black liberation, or can we even advance it?
Okay, thank you. Great question, whoever came up with it. So one of the things that we constantly have to do with media is provide counter-hegemonic narratives. You have to, what that essentially means is you have to speak back to the contained lie about who Black people are. So when they tell you that you can only, and I'll use Cardi B for example, because I pay attention, I follow you also, and I know it's a hot topic. How can we be woke and have Cardi B as the #1 rapper, right? So that's a question. It's a very important question. We have to also think about how our minds have been trained from a dominant lens to think about Black people, and that directly comes from white supremacy. So they told us, for example, that a Black man who is strong and is a warrior is a hypersexual buck. So it's a counter argument. We have to keep countering that lie. We have to keep countering that argument. So if we go back to Cardi B, when we look at Cardi B, we can not only see her as a past stripper. We have to see her more than just a woman who was a stripper, more than a woman who was rapping about capitalism. We have to look deeper into who she is as a human being and provide a different argument to taking what we have been told is only a stereotype. You have to look at that same exact stereotype and tell me, what else can you see? What else can you see when you look at that Black person? Can a Black man tell a joke without being a coon? Is that possible that he can just be happy and laughing and telling a joke without us saying he's a coon, he's a buffoon? We have to counter that hegemonic, that dominant white supremacist ideology and how they trained us to look at ourselves. How they trained us to think about our beauty, our body, what is right, what is wrong, what tastes good, what tastes bad. We have to argue its opposition at all costs, using the same exact media platforms. And then can we have positive or negative? We want to expand our understanding of positive, negative, because those again are just boxes. Reproductive, progressive, all again, we have to think about the edification for our babies, our children. How are they going to respond? What's age appropriate, what's not? But we constantly have to think bigger than just bad or good. There's some in between there. There's effing with the grays. There's some gray areas. Everything cannot be the extreme example. And we also have to be very careful of resisting those who want to remain committed to a Black bourgeoisie image of Blackness. And silence in the room, because that speaks to that dominant narrative that tells you that conservative is the best way, elitism is the best way. We have to speak against that. We have to be very careful of the positive image containment trap.
Okay. Now, what was the question again, please? What's the question again?
The question is,
The question, how do we utilize media and this idea of propaganda to further advance our struggle for Black liberation?
Very good question. Okay, so the media is propaganda, any way you look at it. It's all propaganda. Everything you see on television is a form of propaganda. And when it's funded by those in the dominant society, the underlying message is to always maintain systematic white supremacy. This is why it's important for us to be able to fund and control our own media. For years, people were trying to get a movie done about Miles Davis, his life story. Did y'all see that movie that Don Cheadle was in? Now, a lot of jazz people didn't like that movie because it was fiction. In order to get that movie funded, Don Cheadle said they had to add a fictional white character. The dude didn't even exist. So the movie was a car chase, and it was all types of, it was like Lethal Weapon. It just didn't happen. They made up the whole thing in order for it to get funded. Danny Glover, for years, he was trying to get a movie done about the Haitian Revolution. They told Danny Glover, you're going to have a white hero in the movie in order to get it funded. In the story of the Haitian Revolution, there are no white heroes. And we went and got the money for the movie, 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti. 100% self-funded. Now, we talked about Cardi B. Now, when the dominant society, when they promote something and fund something, like a Cardi B, and I'm not knocking Cardi B, but that goes number one when they fund it. Cardi B goes number one. When we fund something like 1804, 1804 is the number one documentary in the world right now. And the media's not going to tell you that. You go online, you look that up, it's the number one selling documentary because they like to sell the lie that black people, we like the cooning and buffoonery, we like the shucking and jiving, so let's just keep giving them that. And we're showing them that we do like intellectual entertainment. We like scholarly entertainment. And what's interesting, I've been getting a lot of backlash from those in the dominant society because of 1804. Some of the reviews are saying, well, 1804 is racially biased. Because it shows a lot of killing of white people in the movie, and there are killings of white people in the movie. But they didn't say that about 12 Years a Slave. Black people getting beat for 2 hours. They didn't say Django was racially biased. They said nigga every other word. They tell us, well, hey, black people, that's history. That's what happened. You can't change what happened. And I tell them the same. White people got killed in Haiti. That's what happened. It's history. I can't change it. So we have to stop being afraid, because see, we get afraid to offend those in the dominant society if we tell our story. See, black people, we're the only people on the planet whose history is offensive to other people. Asians can talk about Asian history all day. The Irish can talk about Irish history. Hispanics can talk about Hispanic history. The minute we talk about our history, all of a sudden, well, you guys are militant. That's right. So we have to stop being afraid to tell our story, take control of our narratives, and really teach our children to embrace our history and just not be afraid to be able to fund our stuff and not beg the dominant society to do it, because they don't have an interest in showing us in an empowerment light. So it's all about controlling and maintaining the narrative of our history.
All right. We're going to go to Professor Mama, and then we're going to go to the next question, and then it'll be question and answers.
Check, okay. Yes, I agree with that point. I think that you're speaking on the agenda that media generally plays, right? Mainstream media. And then we're talking also about this phenomenon of social media. Social media is so significant in the way that we just function in the world daily now. And also we have to talk about this culture of woke social media that has then been created, where then people feel like they are activists if they tweeted about a certain issue but refuse to show up at any meeting, refuse to show up at any organization, refuse to show up at a conference, refuse to show up at the conversation, but you tweeted about it, so you woke, you an activist now. Absolutely not. That's not where your work ends, you know? And so we have to acknowledge that social media is absolutely a beneficial tool in mobilizing people into a space, but it's done at. You can use it as an educational tool. You can use it to disseminate information, but if you think that that's where we can end, is just talking about it on social media, then we have a problem. So that's generally specifically about black people mobilizing, but then I think generally for people in the world, social media can be positive and negative at the same time. It is also a tool that we've used to compare ourselves to each other. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Yeah. Where we look at these like highlight reels of people's lives and be like, dang, I mean, Shantae just got it all together. So me like, I ain't got it all together. Like, and then this competitive nature then becomes, well, I need to have it all together too. I'm just speaking generally about our emotional condition, because we can't even have an intellectual conversation without addressing our emotional condition and the way in which social media affects our emotional condition and our way of walking through the world. So let us be aware that we are not comparing ourselves to anybody, that you walk in the world in the fullness of yourself, you can't be compared to anybody, but it makes us do that, and we have to resist that.
This is the last question that we have for the panel discussion, and just so you know, some of the other questions that we didn't get to ask on the panel are kind of asked in a question and answer, so we'll still touch on some of that. But for the last question that we want to ask on behalf of the Black Student Union is this concept of God, and how does the concept of God aid the Black community in our efforts and struggle for Black liberation? Who and what is God as it relates to Black? Say it again. Is it a touchy question?
Ask it anyway.
Well, I mean, the reality is the Black Student Union is an organization where we try to engage in those touchy subjects. As long as I'm the president, that's what's going to happen. So if that's the case, I'd like to see how does the concept of God aid the black community in our efforts and struggle for black liberation? Who and what is God as it relates to black African culture? And the reason why it's important to ask this is because, honestly, in 38 years of having a Black Consciousness Conference, for us to still be having some clarity, some lack of clarity in defining what God is, shows that this is still very much an issue in our community. So with that, this is gonna be the last question we ask, and we're getting a question to answers. I'm gonna have Professor, we're gonna go right down the line. Sir Famila, would you like to start?
Oh, help us. Y'all ready? So, black people call God all kinds of different things. Some black people call God Allah. Some black people call God Oludumare. Where I'm from in Nigeria, they call God, but also Oludumare. Some people call on the Orishas. None, just one singular deity, which means that we have a lot of different ideas about what God is. Some people call God the universe and et cetera, et cetera. God, you God. 5%ers, y'all hear where I'm coming from. So, if we know that there are a number of different conceptualizations of what God are, then I would imagine that we would have to be able to respect our different conceptualizations of what God are. What we know is that this is a subject that can be critiqued and broken down forever. What created us? Who created us? Are we God? Is there an external God? Is the God a he? Is the God a she? Is the God both? What we can do is we can continue to critique it, and while we're continuing to critique it as black people, respect each other in our differences of perspective, not minimizing each other for thinking differently about this. I know Christians, I know Muslims, I know all kinds of black people, and I respect them in their way of thinking, and I'm willing to engage them. Yeah, I mean, I can say what my own perspective is, but I don't know that it will serve the purpose of this panel. But yeah, y'all hear what I'm saying? Okay.
All right, yeah, this is a deep conversation, again, because of the multitude and ways in which people communicate with God. And I do believe that there is this conversation around coexisting and respecting the fact that religion may be defined differently than spirituality, for example, and understanding the history of organized religion and how it has been detrimental to black folks in particular. So I think a lot of learning and studying has to be made, even for us to kind of think about an omnipresence in relation to a social construction label of race. But when we think about ourselves as beings, the first man and the first woman, right? The original. Again, it goes back to my first question. What you understand about your own soul and your own self-awareness, who are you, that roots, that knowledge of self is so imperative. But when we connect this idea of your spirituality to you being a human being and how that's going to effectively help with the liberation of us as people, is going to be different for everybody. At least today, we're all in a different place with that. It's going to be different, but where it is the same at is what you feel when you sit and talk to another human being. That cannot be replaced with our ideologies, our philosophies, this human connection that I can only get by sitting next to you and feeling your energy. Our politics may differ. Our beliefs may differ, but there is something about this human connection from our umbilical cord that we all still share. The heartbeat, the drum of our heartbeat connects us as human beings. We are all gods in that way. We are all gods. And so how do we take that responsibility and connect with another human being in an effort to liberate all of us is, again, something that we have to have a conversation about, but it brings us back. It takes all the labels off and brings us back to that human connection through that umbilical cord with another human being. How do you still connect? That's the unspoken understanding that some people call God, But that's the power that we all possess. And we have to figure out how to connect as humans in order for us to liberate.
Okay, my daddy's a pastor, and my mama might as well be a pastor, and because she's preaching at me all the time, and I'm the family heathen in a way. Every time we get together, they be praying for me out loud. You know, that's their way of insulting you. But you know, here's the thing. I started off with a pretty strong, consistent Southern Baptist approach to religion, and then I kind of outgrew some of what was around me. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, and I started asking these questions like, you know, is God real? What does that even mean? And I figured out that God does exist. I concluded God existed because I thought about it. I said, well, is there a creator? And I said, well, I didn't create myself, so there must be something that created me. So that was literally when I said, okay, there's got to be a creator. And then I started thinking about the power of God in terms of how it manifests itself in so many different areas of our life. All the times I can think about in my life and the lives of others where you had nothing to hold on to but faith. You know, faith carried me through the darkest moments of my life when I didn't know what was around the corner. I didn't know how I was going to make it through, but I just said, okay, I'm just going to have faith that it's going to work out. And so these are very religious ideas and spiritual ideas, and so I can't sit here and say that I'm not I don't want to go to church. I'd rather sleep in on Sunday, but at the same time, I think that after a while you kind of figure out, like, okay, well, if God is everything he's supposed to be, then I really don't have to go to that man's building and give him my money to connect to God. You know, I can do that myself. Now with that said, to speak on a more specific kind of context, I will say that from a socio-political standpoint, economic standpoint, etc., as Black people, we know that there has been a lot of mixed outcomes in terms of the Black church. I mean, you can't put the Black church all in one bucket because there's thousands of them and they're all different. But you've seen the extremes, right? You've seen the churches that get so connected to these artificially contrived man-made labels that they use that as an avenue to detach themselves from the community. You know, you got the prettiest building in your neighborhood and you got crack houses all around you and everything's busted up and broken down. And the only thing nice is the church itself and the car that the pastor's driving. Well, you know something's wrong with that, right? We know something's wrong with that. At the same time, what we mentioned earlier, where the Black community struggles because we don't have institutions, we must understand that those Black churches that are productive for the community, those are some of our most prized and prestigious institutions. Those institutions know how to gather people, they know how to gather resources, they know how to gather money, they know how to do all kinds of things that could be beneficial to the community, and there are many pastors and church members that are interested in doing that. So I think that at the end of the day, what you believe in terms of faith is not really of my concern. As long as you ain't trying to preach to me, we good. You know, I'm not gonna preach to you. Only gospel I'm gonna preach to you is Black people are struggling and we must work together to fix that. That's my gospel at that point. So I don't really pay much attention to which denomination you are because let's just be real. These labels, some guy sat in a room and made these things up. Let's just be real. The labels are all man-made. Now, the creator himself, herself, the creator's not man-made, but the labels are. So let's make sure the labels don't cause us to get so caught up in those differences that we can't come together and do what we're supposed to do.
Minutes, please.
Less than.
Less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, mine is real simple. Family. I didn't get saved until I got up off my knees. I tried everything. I mean it. I married a Muslim, Islam, and then I was raised in Christianity. Again, I just didn't get saved or didn't find what it took for me to survive this capitalist society until I learned to give thanks standing up. No more kneeling down. No more feeling like I had done something wrong the weeks and prior days and prior to. All that guilt trip just had to stop. I just didn't have it in me. I know God created me, and I believe honestly that as long as I give thanks to my own ancestors, and I have several angels working with me, I'm always well guarded in family, friends, living beings, and spirit. I honestly spend my life making sure that my space all around me, that's why people say, you gotta get out, but I create a space around me that I just feel comfortable in, and sometimes the world outside isn't what I need it to be. I can't do what I need to done for my spiritual strength, so I kind of stay to myself there. But the truth is, give thanks to the spirits of your own ancestors. Know them by name. What you spit out of your mouth will be your reality. All of us talk up our own demise, or we talk up our own blessings. So everything you say out of your mouth is real. And that first little voice you hear in the morning, if you keep that spirit tight, is of God. That is your God. There it is, right there inside of you. It's the first thing I hear, and it tells you the truth regardless of whether you want to hear it. And I need to learn to act out on some of mine as I'm listening. Give thanks.
You know, all organized religions come from African spiritual systems. These are facts, all of them. And we gravitate towards different religions because we as African people, we've always been spiritually grounded. We've understood the relationship between humans, nature, the universe. The interesting thing, those in the dominant society, while we go towards the religions that they have pretty much man-made, we get away from ours, and they tell us to get away from our African spiritual systems. When we did the movie 1804, I wanted to make it very important to go into what voodoo was really about. Because we've been taught that voodoo and any African spiritual system is demonic. It's evil, and even today, there's a lot of black folks, when you mention voodoo, y'all start getting scared. And the system of voodoo down there in Haiti, they use that system to beat the mightiest armies in the world. This little bitty island of unarmed African people went back to their African spiritual system and beat the greatest armies, multiple armies in the world. So the dominant society, they've been going out of their way to demonize that for us. Because when I went to Haiti to do the movie, you know what I saw? White people down there learning voodoo. See, they tell us something is negative, but then they'll go bathe themselves all up in it. So anytime they tell us something is bad, I'm gravitating towards that. And I'm calling on Ogun, some of those African spiritual systems. Thank you.
Round of applause to our panelists. Want to say something?
I agree with that, and just to add on to that, this idea of like holistic wellness, and they have boxed it up as this thing that it belongs to white people, holistic wellness and meditation, mind, body, spirit connection, that's African. Yes. That is very African. But what do we call it, this Western type of concept? So no, we've been dealing with the connection of mind, body, spirit since humans were on this earth. But they box and say that it was created in Europe, Ayurveda, and all of these things that was created in the Eastern world say that it was created by Europeans. So we have to remember not only our magic as black people, but our science, our math, our astrology, all of these things that we started. But then imagine that they sold it back to us and said, oh, we got y'all. No, we got y'all.
Give our panelists a round of applause, please. Still going to do the rapid fire with the question and answers. 30 seconds or less. 30 seconds or less. So, we have some more. I think we, can somebody get these questions up here possibly and then hand them to us? First, we're going to start with Dr. Boyce Watkins. This is a very quick answer. Can Bitcoin be purchased fractionally? If yes, what app can be used?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of apps, but yeah, you can purchase it fractionally. A big misconception about Bitcoin is that you have to spend $7,000 per coin, and that's not true. You can buy $10, $20 worth of Bitcoin. I've never bought an entire coin. I usually buy $100 or $200 worth at a time. I just sort of consistently bought it.
Okay, cool.
From Coinbase. Coinbase is one of the apps, and there's also programs online. If you really want to learn about cryptocurrency, I encourage you to take a class. I know in the Black Business School we have faculty, PhD faculty, experts, etc., that teach stuff like that. We actually have Lamar Wilson, who's actually the leading Black cryptocurrency expert in the world. If you're interested, you can go to theblackbusinessschool.com to take a look. So feel free.
Okay. This question is for Tariq Nasheed. Can you touch on the Coon epidemic and the Coon film that you will eventually watch?
Yes. We'll touch on the Coon epidemic. When white supremacy starts to codify itself and strengthen itself, we see a rise in coonish behavior. We see a lot of people out here trying to collaborate with the dominant society in order to try to carve out a niche for themselves. They think that they're carving out a safe space. There are no safe spaces in the system of white supremacy. The Coon thing ain't gonna work no more. You're not gonna kiss up to them. They're not gonna save you. As some of our brothers say, the white supremacists, they know how to break their tools when they're done with them. Look at what they do to people like Stacey Dash. She cooned it up and they got rid of her when they were done with her. Sheriff Clark, he'd been cooning for years and he had to retire because they were about to fire him. So that Coon thing ain't working no more. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do, my next documentary is going to be on coons. Because I'm so interested in just what makes you wake up and say, I'm going to be a coon. I'm just going to collaborate with the white supremacists against my people. And I want to go into the mentality of that and what makes a person get to that point. Because we talked about the movie 1804, how the Haitians dealt with the coon problem. They killed the coons first. You understand? And I'm not trying to get nobody no ideas, but I'm just saying, people weren't playing games when it came to their liberation. And we have this thing where we kind of play games with our coons. And we gotta understand how detrimental they are to Black society. So again, I'm trying to find out the name of the movie. I'm trying to figure out a name for the new movie. If y'all can throw some names at me to help me out. But Coon consciousness. So that's gonna be coming pretty soon.
Okay.
I think Tariq is a Black identity extremist. Yeah. He did it.
So for the next question, if Sister Fumilula could take the lead on this one. Why has the issue of Black on Black genocide why has the issue of Black on Black genocide not been included in the Black Lives Matter agenda?
So when we're talking about the work specifically that BLM does and talking about racial issues, what we find is that Black on Black genocide, if a Black person kills another Black person, that other Black person going to jail likely. This is not only a conversation about race, it's also a conversation about justice. But if an officer, white officer, Latino officer, whatever it may be, comes in our communities and kills us, he's gonna get indicted. So y'all see, this is not only a conversation about race, it's also a conversation about justice. That brother or that sister is going to jail. That officer is going home, maybe even with a little money to spend, you feel me? And then if we're talking also about what Black on Black crime, quote unquote, is an outgrowth of. Black on Black, we want to say, no, Black on Black crime, we have to be accountable for our communities. Yes, we have to be accountable for our communities, but we have to understand that when a community is economically not doing well, if a community is economically starved, then the crime rate goes up. If a community is not economically starved and deprived, then the crime rate goes down. And so when you have all of this crime happening in predominantly Black communities, we have to understand that this is an outgrowth of the fact that Black people have been starved systematically for all of these years. So when we say Black people take control of yourselves and own up to accountability for your communities, yes, we must do that. But we must also know that this is a symptom of white supremacy. So we don't always blame the white boy, but we know the ways in which the white boy has functioned in our dysfunction. Let us not be fooled.
I'll make this brief, and I think you made a great point. I think that obviously we know how that argument was used to kind of deflect from the core issue of what was going on with police. And I think at the same time there was always that balance of making sure that we didn't get to the point where we acted like the black on black crime was not a factor. You know, I've only, you know, I've had a few friends murdered through my life, and most of them were black men killed by black men. So it's real, right? And I live in Chicago, and I live a couple blocks from Barack Obama and a couple blocks from Louis Farrakhan. But you go a couple blocks over, you could easily get killed. You're a couple blocks from the president's house. And so it's become the war zone that everybody talks about. But it's very interesting because, number one, they were able to link the majority of those murders to one or two drug cartels. Literally, they would come through Chicago and distribute their drugs. And so if you go into the community and you say, y'all black people need to stop killing each other, most people would say, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I ain't never killed anybody. 99.9% of the people are peaceful, loving people. It's that you have that small faction of people that are in these drug wars and things like that. And the other interesting question that I asked that I haven't got an answer to yet is, why is it that you can go to the south side of Chicago where it's majority black and you got all these deaths and all these homicides, but you go to the north side, it suddenly becomes incredibly safe and clean and perfect, right? Well, that's obviously a result of this system and how policing is done, where they allow the drugs to go into. I've even had young kids on the street tell me that I say, where do you get the guns from? They say, oh, well, guns just appear. They just pop up in the alley, or a train will stop and there'll be a bunch of guns on the train. So this is genocide. That's really what's going on. It's happening all over the country.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, it was in regards to black women. What are 3 impactful tips a black woman can employ to support and encourage and motivate a black man? Dr. Andrea Moore, if you want to touch on that one.
The first tip that we can tell black men, you said to encourage black men? Mm-hmm. The first one is to say, yes, we need you. I think that is so important in our time that we think that, excuse me, as black women advance economically, there is not necessarily a financial dependency on the black man. That's not the reason why we need you. And so I think that's the first tip. The second tip is, I'm so sorry, y'all.
Some water.
The second tip is they're irreplaceable. They are irreplaceable for what they manifest and what they represent in our societies. And it's directly connected to the fact that we need them. They are irreplaceable. So that doesn't mean that something else can replace what a black man is supposed to be and represent. So, thirdly, we are not against you. If I identify as a womanist, that doesn't mean that I am anti-male. We are not against you. We are there to complement each other. And so I guess my third tip is just to remind the black man is that one of us is the sun, one of us is the moon, and together we create balance on earth. We have to come together and not see each other as the enemy.
So this one is also, I guess, well, not I guess, but in regards to the comment that you had made, Dr. Boyce Watkins, about calling a man's handshake or referring to a man's handshake like a 5-year-old girl, do you believe the language we use to insult men is damaging? And they provide another example, so the female ultimately affecting our unity. I guess you meant to say that.
Basically, they're just asking, like, comments like that, does that end up hurting our overall cause of how we engage and identify what culture is, basically?
I don't know. Maybe what I said is politically incorrect, but I don't think a grown-ass man should be shaking a hand like a 5-year-old girl. I just don't believe that. It doesn't mean a 5-year-old girl can't have a firm handshake or anything like that, but I'd expect a man to be a man. And now, what does that mean? You know, she did a great job of saying that there's a lot of interpretations of that. But I don't see a lot of strong manhood in the community. I can just tell you a difference. For example, if I'm in the United States and we have an event and people are coming up in the book sign and there's children, usually the child is there with the mother, there's no father around on average, at least 70% of the time. When I was in another country, I was in London and in another country, and every single child had the mother and the father right there. You know, and so now whose fault is it? We could talk about that, but I just think that we really do need a manhood, a call to action for manhood, a curriculum on manhood, because I don't think that, I think it's a lie to really believe that every single mom can raise their boy to be a man. I don't believe that. I can't raise my daughter to be a woman. I can do everything, I can teach her whatever I can, but the basics of being a woman, the subtleties, I don't know nothing about that. I don't know nothing about the color of the dress you should wear, or if I sent her to school every day, her hair would just be in a ponytail. I wouldn't see the difference. You know, why you got to go to the hairdresser. So my point is to say that there are lots of things that we're fed that are lies about what men need to do and the presence of men and why men are important. And I don't think that that's an accident. I think they want the men gone so they can conquer the community the same way 10,000 years ago you would kill all the men so you can rape and pillage and the women and enslave the children. It's the same thing. That's exactly what's happened. You are a conquered community, period.
Okay. And then we have a question for you.
Right, so I understand the point that is being made about the integral role of black men in the society. I think that the question that was posed by an audience member is getting at us not subconsciously equating girlhood and womanhood with weakness. That if we do that, we are not engaging in a project of unity. We can talk about not equating girlhood and womanhood with weakness in the language that we use because it is a function of our subconscious mind and what we truly believe. Y'all know what I'm saying when I say that. But then also, we have to say that if black men are to protect because of their physical capabilities, because we understand that men are physically capable, right, in terms of strength, then that's a good thing. We want black men to protect, but we want you to protect your peers in your community, not your property. Right. Don't protect your property. Because then what are we adopting when we treat women and children as property? You protect your peers, your community, those that you love, that you stand up for, not those who stand behind you, but those that stand beside you, as equally intellectually capable. Then we can talk about unity.
So when you say property, you know, you're talking about like as a man, if I say, if you're talking about me thinking of the woman as my property, correct? Right. But you know, what I'll say is that I hear a lot of times, how often would you hear it when you say, and I agree with you, I don't, just any man out here, you don't own that woman. You are an invited guest into her home until she boots you out, right? Like, we should understand that. But, I mean, how often do you hear women say, well, that's my man. Don't mess with my man. You my man, right? So I think that property language kind of goes in both directions. I think that's important to understand too.
Right. Briefly, very true. We have been taught to do romantic love in a very capitalistic way. You're mine, I'm yours, don't nobody look at my boo or whatever. Let's not be extra'd out in this way and try to keep each other captive. If we want to be in each other's presence and engage in romantic love, we do that because we adore each other, we see each other as fully capable individuals, but we come together in a beautiful union, not because I own you, but because I adore you, I love you, I respect you. Yes. I respect you in your mind, not just your body. No.
I respect it. That's why Kiki stand me. Okay. We can move on to the...
We also need to understand that property conversation, how it affects our young people in romantic relationships. Women specifically, in heterosexual and probably not, are given specific directions that if you don't give him somebody else will. Because that is directly connected to this idea that you are automatically supposed to give your body to someone even when you don't want to. We have to have a conversation about that because that speaks back to that property.
Okay, so we're gonna rapid fire these last two. This is it. When we speak of protecting the community, how is this envisioned? What actions would constitute protection of the community? Renee, we actually want you to start that one. Protection of the community. How do we protect the community? How do we envision and implement this?
Protection. I have so many brothers that I've always had protection. Shades of Africa has the brothers from all types of neighborhoods to just take care of us. The question is not clear. Something's wrong with this question for me. One more time. What can I do for protection of the community?
When we speak of protecting the community, how is this envisioned? So how do we envision protecting the community? What do we need to implement in terms of protecting our own and stuff like that? For example, Sister Renee, I'll share this, that, you know, throughout the years, we've had some crazy folks throughout the Long Beach, throw bricks at your windows and stuff like that. Yes. How do we go about protecting businesses such as Shades of Africa? How do we go about protecting Black student unions and conferences and stuff like this.
Okay, that brings up okay, so the life of Shades of Africa has not always just been pretty. It has had everything from phone threats, bomb threats, drive-bys with paint guns. I even found somebody, we do, every day I open my door though, you know what really protects us? Is that we're so thick together. I can't open my door now with 4 or 5 people waiting to get in. And if you've ever seen anything protect, it's the fact that there's never a dull moment inside. That's what happens in retail. So the best protection we have is to stick and know that's our flag. That's why if you're doing anything in this town, please learn to raise your flag. You raise a flag for me to see, please. I want each of us to understand. I don't care if it's just a house or a cubby or a hole in the wall. I don't care what it is. Raise your RBGs. Help us find you. You hear me? Because that's a lot of stuff going on out there. You think your phone's got it. Why don't you look outside? It's a lot going on. So we protect one another as long as we know each other are there. So they're for protection, I guess, of the community and, in fact, what we have, our businesses. I don't wake up feeling threatened. I don't know what part they don't like about me, but I got it all in me. So it's like, what part don't you like? The man that made me or the woman that had me? I just really feel like there's nothing outside of me that bothers me in the least. Those are more distractions, and I ain't got time for that. This is an economic warfare, so I want everybody to stay focused. You take this shit and trade it as fast as you can and be happy to be pirates, and we'll figure out a name for woman pirate.
Okay, yeah, you know, the protection thing, that's...
By the way, we're going to end with this question. So
okay,
if anybody has any last comments, just go ahead and share them on this question.
Okay, I'll keep it brief as well. But, you know, if you think about protection of a community, I was processing that question. I think it's such a good question. And, you know, if you break down protection, a lot of protection can be broken down into like an acronym PIE, P-I-E. Physical protection, protection in terms of information, protection in terms of economics. That kind of encompasses quite a bit of what we think about when we talk about protection, right? So if you talk about physical protection, I'm thinking about, I believe that men add something to the table when it comes to the fact that, you know, if you go throughout all of history, most of the wars were fought by men. When you talk about soldiers going out with swords and swinging swords and shooting guns, now it doesn't mean women can't participate. We know that there are women soldiers who serve in every capacity with female police officers, all of that. But I do believe that there's something physical that the man is supposed to bring. There's a reason why the man was always killed first if you wanted to rape and pillage a village. You look at Tariq Nasheed, he's a big, strong man. Their big, strong brother over there. There is no woman in here that is as big and as strong as either one of these guys. And so I'm not saying men don't have a tremendous amount of strength. We know the strength is extraordinary. I mean, my friend called me and told me about the pain of being on her cycle, and I said if men had menstrual cycles, we just take the whole month off. You know, just literally. Let's not even talk about childbirth and the strong black woman. You know what my grandmother embodied and what she went through, and I never understood. I said, how was that woman so strong? So we know the strength is there, absolutely. But there's different kinds of strength. We know that. So you talk about protection. I think that when you have your best and brightest black folks and your strongest men and everyone else, either your strongest men being hauled off to prison or leaving for the suburbs or disconnecting from the community, then obviously the protection is gone. You know, back in Chicago, R. Kelly ain't the only guy running through the hood having sex with 12, 13-year-old girls. There's a whole lot of R. Kellys in our neighborhood. And the thing is that I would argue that the reason my sister was not as vulnerable to the R. Kelly types is because she had a daddy at home that literally had no problem pulling out a gun and dealing with you if you tried to hurt his child. And so, you know, I think that the presence of men makes a difference. I think the presence of those of us are, you know, us hoity-toity educated Negroes who dreamed about getting out of the hood, understanding that that was the wrong message. You need to double down on the hood, go back to the hood, reconnect, bring what you got back home. That's extremely important. Now you go back to the information component. One of the things about information that's really interesting is that you go back to 1995 when Louis Farrakhan gathered 1 million black men into Washington, D.C. And of course that just scared the hell out of every white person in America because they'd never seen that before. Well, right after that, your first black president, Bill Clinton, signed a law that basically allowed companies like Clear Channel to go buy up all the community radio stations so that black people will be fed over 20-something years of a complete horrific misinformation where you're getting Lil Wayne playing on repeat, and you're getting these toxic messages over and over, and they've replaced the local DJs who wanted to give you information. Also, understand this about warfare. When you go and you conquer another country, first thing you do is you start bombing the radio stations, or you take over the sources of communication. And in fact, in the United States, it is a threat to national security for any other country to own more than a certain percentage of the media outlets in this country, because they don't want other people controlling the information. So black people, I ask you, who is most responsible for the majority of the information that comes into your community? It ain't you. It ain't you. So we must understand the importance of owning our own media, supporting black media. When I talk about filmmakers like Tariq, I say, oh my God, this man is he's the most respected director of film in this country, in my opinion. I don't care, I'm not impressed when I see Universal Studios make a black movie, because I understand how the finances work. I know who's really pulling the strings. I'm not impressed by black online media that has black employees and a black message, but they're owned by white folks, because I know at the end of the day that it's that man in the back of the room that's making the final decision as to which version of blackness is going to be exposed today. So we have to own our own media and control our own sources of information. The number one objective I had when I got into the game of public scholarship was to own my own media, because I know that black men like me don't stay on TV for very long. They're going to cut me off. I got banned from CNN for an entire year back in 2008. I never we'll talk about it, but I was banned, blackballed. And I had to find my own way to connect to black folks, so I started thinking about where media comes from. If white folks can do it, we can do it. I read a whole book called How the Jews Invented Hollywood, how these Eastern European Jews pulled their money together and said, let's create media so we can control the way people see us and the way, you know, what they think and all of that. I said, ooh, that's the blueprint. Black folks, let's pay attention to that. So let me, and I'll conclude on this, because I know I said more than I need to say. That last piece, that economic piece, understand this, people. Please, if you forget everything I say, just remember this. A conversation about economics must be one of the most fundamental components of black culture imaginable. It must be as important as going to church on Sunday, as getting together at grandma's house, and got to be as important as talking about what the Dallas Cowboys did this weekend. That must be an important part of the conversation, because a big part of your frustration that you may have had as a black person comes from the fact that white folks control your money. They pay your bills. And so at the end of the day, if another man, if you're a grown-ass man and another grown-ass man is paying the bills in your house and your children get to eat because that man is giving you a check every day, you're not the man of your house anymore. He's the man of your house. And I fundamentally believe, and again, politically incorrect statement, but I believe that it's very difficult for a black woman to really respect and even or look up to or anything to a man who's bowing to another man. So black men, you're meant to be kings, and you will never be a king if you don't learn how to build a castle. If you go in somebody else's castle, he will never make you the king of his castle. He will only make you the court jester. That's why so many black men get ahead in this world, by making white people laugh. So that's all I'll say. Just remember, PIE. I think that's where protection starts, and we can talk more after that.
All right. Anybody else? Last comments.
Thank you all for asking all of us to be here. Again, this was an honor. This truly was, and I want to give a special shout out to the BSU. You guys did an amazing job.
Last question? Last comments?
Yes, we need more events like this, family. We need to keep doing events like this, being around like-minded people, because we look for people who think like this, people who are about empowerment. We have a hard time finding them, so events like this are very pivotal for us. Some of the things we need to do, family, we need to stress the importance of creating an economic base. We have to have an economic base to create societies, to strengthen our families. It really starts with an economic base. Once we get an economic base, we can curtail a lot of stuff that's happening from the dominant society. Another thing, we have to stop judging people within our society based on their circumstances. We don't know their struggle. We don't know what goes on with the person who got to hit the streets and get their money. We don't know, because when it comes to black empowerment, a lot of those street cats were behind the people who were empowering the community. Like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a street dude. Other street dudes helped finance Malcolm after he got in the nation. People like Bumpy Johnson, they're doing something about that now. Brother James Small. So you had a lot of brothers in the Black Panthers who were street dudes, but they understood the importance of getting out there and helping and protecting the community. So all of us are needed within Black society. The bougie, the crackhead, the thug, all of us are needed. We can be utilized because we're all in the same boat, family. So as long as we understand that, we'll be all right.
Indeed. And so just to kind of cap off the conversation, I have written a play. I'm a playwright, and I've written a play about all of this. All of this that we've engaged in here, I've written a play about it, and it's going to be opening in February at the Pan-African Film Festival. Y'all know what that is? So it's going to be opening in February at the Pan-African Film Festival in Los Angeles. So if y'all want to get more information about it, I'm not trying to do shameless self-promotion, but we need to continue this conversation. Right. So my Instagram is Fumi_Lola. That's FUNMI_LOLA. You will find the information on my Instagram or the link on my Instagram, or you can just YouTube woke Black folk. If you YouTube woke Black folk, you'll see my name pop up, and you will see all of the ideologies that exist on this stage in that video. And you're gonna say, wait, I wanna see that play. So come hang out with us in February.
One more time, wait. Yeah, I gotta tell them. Family, for Long Beach residents and all family and friends, you can join us for this year's Kwanzaa event on December 28th. I found that we own a building, a Black-owned building since 1918. It is the Sunset Lodge, Mason Sunset Lodge 26. It's in the ghetto, but when you step in Rainbow, you're gonna make even the homeless feel good. And I need us to restore hope in those we find along the ways. It's right there at PCH and Pacific Coast Highway in Magnolia. It's on a street called Esther, and you'll know it when you see it. It's going to be where we can present our shows. We've just remade 2,800 square feet. It holds at least 300 people. So I want to see you and the children. We'll take care of them from there. Thank you so much.
We want to thank our panelists. We want to thank you all for joining us. It was a very lively discussion. Thank you all for, I would suggest not everyone leaves just yet.